Hello and welcome to the Four Corners podcast. I'm Brad, joined by Matt and Shad as always. Gentlemen, how are you doing this evening?
All right.
Doing good.
I like your shirt, Matt. What's the graphics on that?
It's actually something I got like one of my elite crates.
Oh,
Well,
okay.
it's actually I think like the Pro Wrestling Tees one, but it's Teenage Mutant Ninja Wrestlers, and it's just like
Oh, okay. That's cool.
kind of like Ninja Turtles, but Lucha.
Teenage Mutant Lucha Turtles.
So tonight,
That'd be a
I
sequel.
actually
That'd be a
I've actually
sequel.
you know that WWE has put out like Ninja Turtles themed like wrestlers, like they've actually did like a collaboration with TMNT.
they did Masters of the Universe a couple of years ago.
Oh, is that what led
Yeah.
led to the rise of like the Gator Bray Wyatt or whatever?
That might have been Zombie. They've done some weird stuff.
No.
Okay.
That yeah, they did a couple lines which actually weren't that successful, but they did like a zombified version, and they also did like a mutant version, but that was a few years back. They had Gator Bray Wyatt, they had Sting as an actual like mutated Scorpion man. Like it was weird. So
Wasn't Macho Man like Man at Arms or whatever?
I don't know about that. I don't recall that.
The TM they're doing like a TMNT Masters of the Universe one right now, and those are interesting. But all of that stuff is so expensive, sadly.
Yeah, I mean getting toys now is like expensive.
Yeah.
Like it's $20 or more.
I mean 25 unless Hasbro decides like for some reason this is 35 instead of 25. Which
They do that. It's
yeah.
like let's put some slightly larger like accessories and then jack up the price like $10 more. And it's like, it didn't cost you $10 to give me like the extra like small bits of plastic
Well, my
that
favorite
you're
now
thinking
is
justified.
my favorite now is like let's put the accessories we used to give you and charge you 10 extra dollars.
Yeah. Oh, I remember back in the day, like, because I collected GI Joes. Like some figures would have like massive stuff. Like there was a version of Stalker, like that character, who was like he came with a boat, like a little canoe or something, and it was like big. And it's like that's the same. It was the same like $2.99 or however much it was as the other figures. It's like, come on.
Yeah, you don't get like the effects anymore. Like you're lucky if you get an extra head and another pair of hands and like one accessory past that. But so anyway, tonight we are talking about the USWA, and we're finishing off January with the January 18th and January 25th episodes. I have a lot to say about those shows. Actually, quite a lot. I have a lot of thoughts based on what I saw. And but first, so we usually do two topics, and so this week we're doing the same topic but from two different directions that count as our two questions. So generally what we're doing tonight is what do we think modern wrestling gets right and what do we think modern wrestling gets wrong. So I like to start with the positives. So we're gonna do the positive first and talk about what we think modern wrestling gets right. So there's a couple that come, I think, jump right out at me for modern wrestling. For starters, match quality I think is a lot higher, and I think across every promotion, guys of all shapes and sizes get opportunities now versus what they used to. And I would say that also applies along racial lines. Despite some of the things we've said about WWE, I still think it's true across every company that your ethnicity is not held against you like it was.
Just for clarification, when we say modern, where are we drawing the line at? What's the difference?
I'd say post WCW closure, we'll say, because I tend to think that's modern wrestling. I would say probably. I would say, man, what would modern wrestling be? Nexus to now.
I think post WCW to current is a. Like, we could break that down, but I think that's a decent enough way of looking at it.
I think that's a good measuring stick. Like, I mean, it closed down in early 2001.
Yeah.
I would maybe say like, well, maybe like the beginning of Ring of Honor, but that was in 2002, so I'm really
Yeah.
quibbling over the span of like a few months to a year, like
Yeah.
one calendar year. So, but around that time frame, I think
'Cause-
that's fair, because even if you think about it, like let's say at the end of WCW, okay, or that when that closed, like that's when it starts. That's still over 20 years at this point. So yeah, like when you're dealing with like the a 20-year span, it's like, yeah, that should be kind of modern, which is also kind of, it dates us maybe because we all at least started watching wrestling at least during like the Monday Night Wars. So it's like the Monday Night Wars at this point are something that really in their heyday happened, like the heyday. And by this, it was like 25 years ago. But really, if you go back 25 years from now, you're dealing with like 1999. The war was pretty much over at that point.
Yeah.
Well, so I think we can kind of call, if we wanted to split the two, I think at least for the moment, the last 20 years being modern is okay, but I think we can probably call the split. There's a split from post WCW until somewhere in the mid-teens.
Well, there's the Ruthless Aggression era, which would go to about 2010, 2011, 2012 at the latest.
Well,
And then I would say there's the so I would say the birth of AEW is like an era in and of itself. But
I
then
think that
there's that between era, which I would call the indie boom era.
yeah,
Where
that's what
streaming-
I was getting at, is you had that, like, up to a certain point, and I wasn't sure which year to put it at. You had the, basically it's WWE, Ring of Honor, PWG in North America, and that's really, well, and in TNA, Impact,
Well,
whatever.
Well,
But there
I would even
wasn't,
say-
there's like a notable shift
I think
in
it's
this indie boom period.
I think it's when
in terms-
streaming. I think it's when WWE Network was born. That is a new era because then that's when streaming became easily accessible to everyone. And then for $10 a month, pretty soon after that, you could watch whatever promotion you wanted. You could get New Japan. You could get Progress. You could just follow Chikara. Like I think the streaming, we could call it the streaming era. Would go with the boom, the indie boom. But I think that's kind of
And
where a
yeah,
different era kicked
and
off.
in modern day, there's obviously, well, now AEW is kind of getting it too because their content's going to be on Max, but you have the WWE on Peacock. Although that since the network started, or even the 24/7 on demand, which is what was on like on demand services.
I had
or
that
cable
back in the day.
I had that back in the day too. It was only like $10 or something like that, maybe a little more than that, and you actually
Was it 10?
it's I don't think it was that expensive. It may have been 10 to 15 or so. It was not crazy, I don't
No.
recall. But arguably that
It wasn't
You
like
can't
it is now
almost-
though, because so if you don't know, just to describe what it was, if you didn't have it, so every 2 weeks they would flip the content, so you would get a couple random pay-per-views, like a pay-per-view from a couple months ago, like they would go sequentially. Then you would get like the Monday Night Wars thing, which would be Nitro and Raw. You'd get an episode of Crockett and whatever else they were doing, and then some odds and ends. But like it wasn't like now where you had this huge menu of stuff. Like it was a lot of stuff, but there was. So there was a lot of stuff, but you also, if you wanted to make it last, you had to be judicious, or you would blow through it in a weekend.
Yeah, that's the thing. There was a good amount of content, but it was also not so much content.
It was finite. It was very finite.
It was finite, but you did get some cool stuff because it'd be like, let's throw on a couple like random recorded house shows or what have
Yeah.
you from like Madison Square Garden or like Maple Leaf Gardens or from Boston or something like that. And they would oftentimes they would do like theme stuff. Like now it's October, they do like Halloween themed, where it's like maybe one of the old pay-per-views they show you is like an old Halloween Havoc. And they would show you like the modern WWE pay-per-views. It would just be like a 2 or 3 to 4 months
Yeah.
like lag. So it's October, like you'd be seeing like maybe the pay-per-view from like June or July. But that I was fine. That's fine. 'Cause then think, I mean, I guess I want to go to like some of the discuss a little more like we're like streaming and everything like that, because there is more. There's not just like WWE, now AEW is getting into it too, but you've had IW, you've had New Japan going on for like quite some time. But you also have like Wrestle Universe, which does a bunch of other Japanese promotions, because you get Noah, you can get DDT, you can get
Sendai
Tokyo
Girls.
Joshi Pro, Marigold, Marigold, um, Sendai Girls, I think is on there
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They just
there's
started.
also like another one. Like, but you could also get, there's All Japan has a streaming service, Dragon Gate. There's some more of that, but even just locally in the United States, like I think it's IWC, and also with more popular one, Fight, which now I guess is Triller.
IWTV is like I think the big one. That's where like Beyond is and a lot of that.
Beyond's on that. Fight, aka Triller. They've
High
actually,
Spots. High Spots has a service, but I don't know what's on there. I think that's where you can get PWG stuff. But I know it's consolidated a lot, especially as indies have kind of let's say lost a lot of their pull over time.
yeah, and indies aren't as big, I would say, now as they were. They still, it's been slow, I feel, recovering since the pandemic. I felt like some of them got kind of hot.
Well, I
But
feel
then the
I,
pandemic shut a lot of that stuff down,
I feel like
and it's been,
they also like the birth of AEW kind of hurt everyone because like there was like WWE would come in and sweep up the talent, then like that next generation of guy would come up to take their place, and WWE was talent hoarding at the time, and then they had that next generation coming up, but because AEW formed, they grabbed that next group up really quick before they really got their footing. So then they had to go down to the next level of guy. And I don't feel like they've ever quite found that next crop of like stars like they had in the late like teens.
yeah, I mean, there's a handful that always makes their way through, because that's nature. Like the best of the best will find a way to kind of rise above,
Yeah.
but
So
there is something to be said, like in the indie scene, like there are a lot of guys who are not that good. What were we gonna say, Shad?
first of all, I resemble that remark, Matt. And then second, second, I didn't mean to, but I took us way far afield. I just kind of wanted to have us have a clear delineation on what the modern was.
But I think it's too easy like
Well,
when you're in it to like when you like it's true of like the comic book era where it's
Yeah.
like you have these fine delineations of like I don't know 7 to 10 years, and then you hit like modern era 30 years, and it's just
Yeah.
And I
It,
agree. I didn't want to like. I was kind of sitting here thinking like I don't want to do the modern era. It's like 22 years, but I think it's
so I think this we could probably consider the streaming era, the with the indie boom, as the modern era, and then I will at least call post WCW until the start of that the WWE monopoly era.
I would just call it
Um,
the ruthless aggression era because
and
that's also when you had like why I would call that the ruthless aggression era is because every pissant indie was doing like the raw formula and all that stuff.
well, I call it the monopoly era because everything was aping that, and I mean, hell, I was working in that time period, and it's funny enough, in the time I was working, I was not watching modern TV. I was not watching, contemporary wrestling TV because it bored me. One of the things you mentioned, match quality is better. I think we're seeing better match quality. We're seeing more variety in what we have offerings in ring. We're having more intricate in-ring storytelling. I'm not saying that there wasn't intricate in-ring storytelling in eras previous. I'm saying that we currently have more of it happening all up and down the card. Now, there's a flip side to that coin, but I'm going to wait on it.
I would, to your point, Shad, I will say, because of streaming, it's a little, I'll say, easier to kind of see like if you want to tell a story, even if you're doing like an indie, but an indie that you do run at least a couple shows, bigger shows a month. And they're going to be broadcast somewhere, Triller, IWC, like something, but they're going to be broadcast. And I'm not even talking, I'm talking indies, specifically indies. Obviously, WWE, AEW, like they
Like
have TV
Beyond.
that they can do this.
We'll
But
say like Beyond
yeah,
Wrestling.
yes. But if you want to tell stories, if you have an idea, like you want to tell a story with a certain workers involved in that story, and you want to take that and tell that story or tell from go to point A to point B in like 6 months, like you can tell that story and it would be accessible to people in the sense that they could watch all of those shows in sequential order. Whereas like just preview of just the show we're going to talk about, the 2 episodes we watched of USWA, it's like they're telling stories too, but they're doing it where it's like they're doing it in a fashion that we're kind of, since we've seen so much wrestling, we're used to, where it's like they're using the TV truly to build to the big shows. But there's still stuff, it's like obviously we're watching this stuff like 30 plus years after.
Yeah.
So we're mentally filling in the gaps. But back at the time, you probably would, if you were watching consistently, you'd be like, oh yeah, I like when we first started watching a couple of weeks ago, it's like, oh, we're entering into this. I don't know jack about Jeff Jarrett and Robert Fuller feuding with the Moondogs, but the first episode filled me in enough of that I could be like, oh my god, and then I want to see more about this, etc. But yeah, the modern era, to your point, it's like you can see that, and you can tell intricate stories because people have the ability to actually see that content, or at least a good amount of it that they can largely follow what's happening.
But there's also other tools you have, and you have fans that you can kind of utilize too. But you can, like, if I was running a promotion, I could just be like, go into like the squared circle, like, hey, you want to watch my show? Here's this wiki with what you need to watch to understand the top feuds. Or, oh, hey, we threw together this 4-minute YouTube video that like gives the entire background with all the big highlights for you, like a WWE package. But it's like, well, here it is. It's at your own. It's at your own disposal.
To that, there.
Go ahead.
To that, I can understand there's a criticism that sometimes things, especially if you're running a big promotion like AEW, for example, because they Tony Khan and everyone, they've been criticized about that, where it's like, I understand there is stuff, there's a certain amount of like, well, this should be on TV, like you shouldn't just promote a storyline or something through social media. I can kind of see that. Like I know, like with the Continental Classic, they had some guys like cut promos, and even after that, like in last year, they've had people sometimes cut promos or give like mini interviews or whatever, and it's just been on like social media on AEW's like Twitter or what have you, and it's been really good. And it's like, wow, like this could really get these guys over, help advance the storyline. They should be on TV. And it's like, I get that, but I also feel like they also are trying to do something where they're trying to incorporate those other streams of media. And that's actually, if I had to do like a negative, that is something I feel like, again, that the WWE monopoly really has damaged a lot of people's brains on this, where it's like, you shouldn't, there's a line, of course, where you need to explain enough to people, but sometimes they should also be able to fill in the gaps too. They don't need to be spoon-fed. And the WWE has done a job now for 20-something years of spoon-feeding people what they want them to consume, the product to consume. And for a long time, like, there were fans who actively rejected that. And that's how you got like the rise to begin with of Daniel Bryan and other things, that because they rejected what they were being spoon-fed. But the WWE is either brainwashed or chased away all those fans. So now they can spoon-fed whatever and people just eat it up. They love it. But I think that's something that's a negative to the business as a whole, where it's like it's a joke. It's a joke on Twitter, social media and everything. But obviously I favor AEW, but it's a joke because people are like, well, no, like the storyline can be in the ring, or there is storylines, because that's a criticism. It's like, well, there's just storylines in AEW. It's like, that's the dumbest thing I've heard. Like,
that is a
tell a lot of
completely
intricate
bad
storyline.
faith argument.
Yeah, because
it is because it's made by people who don't watch the product, where it's like they're getting that because and the other, to go back to my spoon-fed point, it's like, yeah, they don't just, it's not WWE, and it shouldn't be, and they've gotten into trouble, especially last year when they tried to be more like WWE. So it shouldn't just be like, oh, I'm doing a storyline. Let me hit you with 10 video packages and everything to tell you what the storyline is. And that should not be what's happening. And there are people even, especially like who I know, like from the Observer, and they like complain about like, well, this should be a video package. It's like, yes, some of that criticism may be valid, where it's like, again, get some good interviews, like after the Continental Classic on the social media. It's like, well, maybe this would get like Daniel Garcia over a little more if you show him this awesome promo he cut. Like just air that in like a minute or two.
Yeah.
Dynamite or Rampage or Collision, whatever. But it's also like you don't need to be spoon-fed and stop asking to be spoon-fed. Just watch the WWE if that's all. That's the type of product.
Right, 100%. That's my big issue with a lot of the like. There's a laundry list of stuff about AEW I could give you that I have a problem with, that I think they could do better, where I think they've dropped some balls with people. But my biggest problem is when people criticize it for not being WWE. My answer to that is go watch WWE. If I wanted that, I would watch WWE. Like I want to watch. Like, I watch New Japan because I want the real sport mixed with pro wrestling, and I want AEW because it gives me a touch of that old Southern-style WCW promotion that I like. Like, I don't want the WWE stuff, and I'll use a great example where the fallacy of video packages and people wanting to be spoon-fed is the Hechicero versus the Bryan Danielson match. You didn't need anything. You didn't need anything with that because so Hechicero comes out, he looks cool as hell, great entrance, goes toe to toe with Danielson the whole match. They have this big back and forth match. Hechicero loses, and then he's a sore loser about it. What more do you need?
Yeah, I had never. I mean, I'm outing myself, but I haven't watched a ton of Lucha in the recent times. Never seen a match that he had ever been in. Didn't know who he was. But yeah, like that one match, it's like, oh, this guy looks cool. Oh my God, he's got a cool entrance. Oh my God, he's going toe to toe with Bryan Danielson. This match is awesome. And it was an awesome match. And then, like you said, he loses. He showed personality in that because he was a sore loser or whatever. It's like, for a guy I did not know anything about, now I have at least an idea of him, and I'm impressed, and I want to see more of him. It's like that they told an entire story.
Yeah, and a great old example from an older match we watched, the Tully Blanchard Terry Taylor match we watched from TV, where the whole story of the match is Tully kind of is taking him a little bit lightly, and Terry takes him to the absolute limit, and it turns into Terry trying to put him away and like Tully just trying to hold on for dear life till the time limit. Like, what video package did you need? It's the young pup like giving the vet hell.
Chad, what did you want to say? You've been
trying to edge in. One of the other things that I was going to say is, aside from the match quality going up, is there is now a wider and more recognizable proliferation of different styles happening. And when I say that, I mean, you've got, we went from an era where North American WWE heavyweight style was the cookie cutter. And that's what everybody was aping because that's what everybody saw on TV. And so that was the formula. To now we've got, more different high flying stuff. We have, we've got the heavyweight brawler. Yeah, we like Will Ospreay and Ricochet are they're more of like a New Japan Junior fusion style kind of thing.
Well, there's what do they call it? There's it's like British Pro-Wrestling. I don't know what they call it. Luchasu. Like there's a lot of fusions of style.
Well, and I was actually gonna bring up we get more spotlight on full on technician stuff with like Zack Sabre Jr. being a bigger name now and that sort of thing. So we have more styles proliferating across, and modern era we're getting not from one company, but we're getting more cool tag team stuff, which just makes me very happy. The flip side to all of this coin is though that that wasn't bad for anybody English that might be watching. I had said there was a flip side on better matches. The other problem is, well, the other good thing is we're getting more variety. We're getting more different stuff. The flip side to it is though that now we're getting the excess where everybody is trying to have every match be a 5-star banger, and it's like, guys, look, I know that you wanted to have. And here, I'll go back a couple of years for this example. Sammy Guevara versus Jungle Boy is going to be this, but it's like, dude, this is like middle of the show on Dynamite, and you guys are going way too damn hard for enough. Save some stuff for later, but they're throwing everything at it, and it's like, oh god. And the other thing that happens that I think modern wrestling is not doing well is that there is, in having some of those style things happen, there's going to be less tolerance for things that are outside of your wheelhouse, because you get tucked in with like, this is my favorite. I hate the fact that everything is now the GOAT. It's like, no, it's your favorite.
Yeah, I hate that discussion too.
And I'm going to do a slight defense of the WWE style stuff that was in AEW. MJF and the MJF Adam Cole storyline, the Brochacho storyline, it was more WWE leaning, but it was also like over as hell, and people were all about it. But then whenever the focus shifted off them, it didn't stay that way. That was the style of story they were telling. So, and it worked, and then they went somewhere else and it was done differently. But we're getting this just, I mean, absolutely wretched, while nobody in the, like, none of the wrestlers care, but we are getting in the, at least in the fandom, this absolutely wretched back and forth that it's either all what I like and everything else sucks, or you all suck and only what I like is good. And it's like, for God's sake, like, I know back in the Monday Night Wars era, you'd have preferences one side or the other. Did you like WCW versus NWO? Cool. Were you like Stone Cold? Cool. And you know what? We would channel flip back and forth. We'd watch both of them. Unless the show absolutely sucked, we'd watch both of them. For God's sake, sit down and calm your ass down. Enjoy what you enjoy, and let other. You don't have to eat the same kind of ice cream as everybody else. Just enjoy yours. You want the Neapolitan? Eat the Neapolitan. You want the vanilla? Eat the vanilla. You want the Rocky Road? Eat the Rocky Road. You don't have, the other stuff's good. You just don't, it's not what you prefer. And it's that particular thing is driving me crazy, because it also feeds into the PR AstroTurf bullshit stuff.
I just don't get those people that like, and it's only a segment, like I'm not like painting with a broad brush, but those like Fed heads and Fed pillars that like seem personally offended like other wrestling exists. It's so weird to me, because it's like, I mean, I know Matt's kind of like me, but it's just like, why do you want to watch just like one promotion your whole life? Like I've always kind of like fluctuated around a bit. Like, oh, New Japan's good for a couple years, well, I'll watch it. Well, it's not so great now. Like, hey, this Stardom over here is pretty good. And like, oh, hey, AEW's in my back door. Like, I'll watch that for a couple years. Like, well, it's not doing as good for me right now. Like, hey, Stardom's good again. I'll go back and watch Stardom again. Like, I just don't understand that. Like, I'm only watching WWE, and that's like all wrestling is to me.
Yeah, and I think that what those people don't recognize, or choose not to recognize, because they're being disingenuous. But I would dispute that the WWE nowadays is good. I don't actually think it's good in terms of booking, and I feel that the quality of the matches has decreased.
Yeah, that's weird.
Partly,
I don't know if that's. I think that's a talent thing, because Triple H really brought in, I would say, not great workers.
It is a talent thing, because the guys who traditionally have been like world-class workers are getting older. So I mean, again, Kevin Owens and Sami Zayn are two phenomenal workers, but they are both 40 or about 40 or slightly over 40. Like they're and they put a lot of wear and tear on their bodies.
And I would
They're still
say,
phenomenal workers.
and like
But
AJ Styles, I think is practically washed at this point. So
he's
Yeah.
kind of washed. He's unfortunately he injured himself, but he's someone who look,
he just
if
got
you
old.
if
Like
he got old, and that's fine. He's still would I still say he's a good worker? Yeah. Can he do the things that he did 5 years ago?
Not
Probably even 5 years ago.
looking likely.
10 years ago, certainly not. But
I
that's
don't even
fine.
think he
But
could do what he could do 3 years ago at this point. Truthfully,
yeah, but guys have gotten older, and a lot of the crop of guys who have come in that would in theory replace them, I feel, are not the same level of worker. I mean, is anyone making the case that Austin Theory is going to be like the next guy? I know Vince was high on him, but it's like that you were the only guy, Vince, like who really sees it in Austin Theory. But
they kind of fumbled. I feel like there was, and I don't think it's necessarily a Triple H thing, but like when they had that weird like let all those NXT guys go, I feel like they punted what the guys that should be like filling that void. Yeah, Swerve, like the Undisputed Era guys.
Yeah,
like I think they just.
But to digress, like I would dispute that the WWE is good, but to the extent that the WWE gets good or better, it's when they actually have competition that they actually have to step up their game. Because we saw like when they have just a monopoly, where their opponent isn't actually like has any sort of power, or even if they even have an opponent, like they just get horrible. And it's like I would dispute that they're good per se right now, but it's like, yeah, but creatively they get way worse. And it took AEW coming around and actually being on TV and having a degree of success to even force them to get. And even then, it's like I think it's still disputable that they're good. And it's like, well, what did they do to get good? Like certainly, like with AEW, how the kind of pendulum swung is because they got Cody, and they took Cody and they took the exact same presentation of Cody as AEW. He's AEW Cody. He's now WWE Cody because and that's why people are like, oh, he's gonna come back. He's gonna come back to AEW one day. Like he has like so many stories he wants to finish, and it's like he's exactly where he wants to be. And I don't mean that. I mean he's obviously where he wants to be, but it's also like Cody Rhodes. This is exactly what Cody Rhodes has always wanted. He wants the pageantry. He wants to be essentially like He wants to be like the Hulk Hogan figure that he probably feels his dad should have been, but wasn't for different reasons. He's where he wants to be, but
I think
I
think he might go back, but like I don't think it's for that reason. I just think he had an amicable relationship with them, and life could take him back there because you never know. Like I think that's the reason, but it's also funny he's having the same fans starting to turn on him arc in WWE that he had in AEW.
I see it. I see it happening on social media. It's slowly happening.
I feel like that's a booking issue, though. Like I feel like because why I think they're turning on him. This is my personal theory: is he was never supposed to win the belt at Mania. That was a panic move because people rebelled against the Rock thing. And to their credit, they did listen. But this is what happens when you haven't built anyone for years. And I think
they didn't have any plans for him.
Like, because like having Roman on top for so long in this environment where you have to fill so much content, it stagnated everyone below him. So there was no one ready to face him, and it just I think that's been the problem with him. I think if he'd won it last year, it would have been a lot better. I think that hurt him a lot.
Yeah.
So, yes, I think we can say that the sniping and the tribalism and that sort of stuff certainly feels to be very different than it used to be. Another thing that's not happening as well, you guys already mentioned, is in a lot of cases, new stars are not being built. Well, it's hard to say. Because if I say not being built the way they used to, I have to lean back and go, okay, who are we gonna, what am I gonna counterpoint it with? And that's tough to do. That would be like a whole thing on its own. I think one other thing that we might say that is they're not doing as well is, and the thought left me. There it goes.
I'll
It's
use
gone.
one I think is a bad thing to wrestling, because I think social media and like YouTube and stuff has been like a boon for added content and context. But where I hate it, where I hate social media is, and if you're a wrestler watching this, do not, under any circumstances, ever bring up social media in a promo, because it instantly kills whatever you're talking about. Like, instantly.
Well, because people immediately grab their phones and start going looking for what you're talking about, and that means they've quit paying attention to you.
Yeah, and it just, there's something, I don't know, there's something like, it trivializes it too. Because
Yeah,
it's like, oh, you guys are mad because you got a boo-boo over something someone said on social media. Like, it's different than like, oh, hey, you jumped me at the bar, or I just don't like your face, or you have that belt that I want. Like, there's just something that like minimizes whatever it is. It just doesn't feel important. Like, maybe for like a Zoomer or something that might resonate better, but like, I don't know, there's just something that's like come on guys, like you can come up. It's kind of like when didn't Jericho and Kane have a feud because someone spilled coffee on someone or something way back
yeah.
in the day? It's like that, or it's just like, come
Yeah.
on guys.
That was pretty lazy. Yes, I'll agree. One thing they do well is you can use YouTube and social media stuff to accentuate or build hype around your stuff. What they're not doing well, though, is leaning too hard into it. Like, for example, I know of one Hangman Page promo since he returned that was only on maybe X, formerly known as Twitter, and it was like a really, really good promo.
Oh yeah,
Like,
that one.
really good. And they didn't re-air it. You could make the argument, did they have enough time? Did they have enough TV time to re-air it at some point? I don't know. But you're not having really good stuff like that be regulated to the second string, because let's face it, that's not your primary presentation, is not doing you favors. So, and the other thing I was going to say that the contemporary does not do as well is, yes, we see more variety in the ring, more people doing different stuff, but as soon as something catches people's attention, everybody starts doing it.
Yeah.
The Canadian Destroyer and the Code Red have been used like to absolute death. And off the top of my head, the two people that I see using a Code Red right now that I'm good with, that's like Darby Allin and Sky Blue, because it's a big spot for Darby and it's a finish for Sky. And then everybody else is like, oh, I do the Code Red too. And I'm like, and that's even me picking on one of my favorites. That's me picking on Dustin, because it's like, Dustin, dude, why are you doing a Canadian Destroyer, man? That is a move to me that should be a finish and not a high spot.
I mean, but that's like a comeback spot for him, though.
But for me, that is a move that should not. It should be a finish.
Okay.
Like the Panama Sunrise pisses me off.
I know. I have a good one. Speaking of your complaint about excess, one thing I do think is a big problem with both companies and indie shows in general is too much time. Like, there's too much TV time for both companies. I think AEW's right on the cusp of having too much. Because I think Collision just added a little too much. WWE definitely has too much TV time. But then on top of that, like the 5-hour shows you go to live, or like the 5-hour pay-per-views, is just too much to sit through at times. And like I enjoy the AEW pay-per-views, but sometimes one of them rolls around, I'm just like, I don't want to sit here from 7 to midnight if like I'm gonna watch the pre-show and they're gonna have a good match on the pre-show. Like that is usually one that I think both companies have. And WWE cut down on theirs, but like some of those pay-per-views, even if they're good, can be real slogs to
There
get
is
through.
like I want to say something from earlier. Like there are, even if I don't watch WWE, there are people there I like, but I'm not sitting through 2 nights of WrestleMania to catch the people I like in maybe 2 or 3 matches on both nights. I'm not doing it.
Two-night events.
I
I cannot begin to explain. I hate two-night events. And that's not like a WWE hate thing. I hated when Wrestle Kingdom did it. It ruined the specialness of Wrestle Kingdom. It ruins the specialness of Mania. It dilutes both cards. And
yeah.
We for those who might feel like we beat up on WWE too much, like I know Brad, I know for sure, like we have talked on the show about how like, because you and I have watched New Japan probably a little more than Chad, and
Mhm.
we said before it's like I don't like multiple nights of Wrestle Kingdom, and it's like I don't. I think that New Japan historically has been a little better at keeping like the match quality of Wrestle Kingdom and making Wrestle Kingdom feel like a big deal, but
it
it's better when it was
lost
one night.
it lost a
Yeah,
lot for me when it went to 2 nights. Like it's not special anymore. It was special for me going back to just being the one Ford Dome show. It was special. And like
yeah.
the second time they did the two-nighter, I was like, it's not special anymore.
I'm just not going to
For a
do it.
while, the match quality, like the actual quality of the matches, were still good, and you had like some, at least a couple of really good main events. But then it also became kind of almost like predictable, because if you had like, let's say you had like Naito against like a Ibushi night
Hmm.
one, and whoever
And if
was like winning that would face Okada the next night, and it's like you should tell by the booking. It's like, okay, well, Naito's going to win this, and then Okada's probably going to beat him the next
yeah,
night or whatever. And it's like it became like the matches were phenomenal, but you'd be like, I know where they're going with this,
it,
or even more predictable. It'd be like it's Naito versus Jay White first night. And like the winner goes against Okada. It's like, well, they're not doing Jay White Okada
well,
on the
sometimes
final.
sometimes you
It's
didn't
gonna be
even get
Naito
that.
Okada.
Sometimes you didn't even get that.
Yeah,
You got like, oh, Naito won the G1 and he's gonna wrestle Okada on night two, but he's wrestling Jay White on night one. It's like, well, like,
yeah,
I
You're
mean,
not going to cut his nuts off on night one then.
yeah.
yeah. And I think with WWE, the problem I've had with WWE, I think maybe this year they didn't do it, but like so my problem with the Mania ones have always been is like one night's usually pretty good, and usually that's the first night, and then the next night just kicks you in the nuts over and over and over again with like all the bad booking they didn't put on night one and like bad results the whole time. Um, like the 2023 Mania was pretty notable for that, and I think 2021 maybe.
Remember, there was the R-Truth gif that was for the WWE Network, but they replaced it. He's like dancing across
Oh
the screen.
yeah,
It says, "Screw you, we got your money." Like that's what it feels like if you watch night one and you're like, "Oh, that was good," and then you tune in and start watching night two. Then you're like, they're like, "We got your money." The only, and like you said, it feels like they're putting in less effort in the undercard on night two because you're in this far, you're going to hang around for the main event, right? And it's like, no, I'm not feeling it.
yeah. And the other thing is like, as an adult though, like if you do a two-night event, like especially Mania, like it kills your whole weekend. Like it's one thing to like devote like a Sunday every month or every other month to like a PLE or a pay-per-view. But you're asking me to do a Saturday Sunday combo. It's like I'm sorry, like I'm an adult, like you're killing both of my nights. Like
So old school. One of the big things that would happen is people would rotate who bought the pay per view. And so it's Mania night. So you've got chicken wings and you got pizza and you got pizza rolls maybe and all this sort of stuff. But if you do that on 2 nights, then well, you're not going to spend that much money on both nights, and you're not going to. It feels like it drags the social aspect, and I don't know, man. It's a weird complex. There's lots of weird complex reasons as to why it's not great, but it just boils down to there's a whole bunch of reasons why I don't think it's great. But why do they do it? Because they can make more money off of it.
I think are they doing SummerSlam or one of those as a two-nighter?
SummerSlam, yeah.
Yeah, next year,
The only
I guess Mania and SummerSlam will be 2 nights.
the only one I would think is moderately okay, and it would still not be okay, is if they did it to the Rumble, so I could just ignore the women's Rumble and whatever night that is, and just tune in for. Well, the men's Rumbles sucked for a long time too. So
And I don't even want to hate on the women workers there. It's just it feels like the women's Rumble is such an afterthought for them.
They're not. Well, I think the problem is like, well, the men's Rumble is crap now too because they don't have a good person to call it. But like, I just think the problem is like the women aren't. Most of their workers are not experienced enough. They don't have a big enough roster, so they have to bring a bunch of guest stars in. Like,
Oh yeah.
most years it's like what, like 8 of them are fill-ins.
It was a bunch.
Like they had
What
to
were you
get
going to say, Matt?
Jordan Grace last year to.
Oh, yeah. The women's Rumble is a mess, but it would not surprise you. It wouldn't surprise me, Shad, if they could get away with it. That at least like the big four, they do 2 nights. So Rumble, Mania, SummerSlam, Survivor Series. It would not surprise me. Now I don't know that they will be able to do it, but I think that this is a trial balloon, obviously. So they'll be like, oh, let's try like SummerSlam because Mania, SummerSlam, kind of 6 months apart, not quite, but I mean, a little bit. No, not really. But
Not really, but far enough apart you could maybe.
At least
far enough
4-ish
apart you
months.
could make the point.
Yeah. I suppose
But-
Survivor Series would probably be a little bit more,
See,
but
I think you could.
we'll see.
You could do something with Survivor Series as like a 2-nighter though, because you could make it like lean back into the Survivor Series thing, but make it a 2-night tournament, and have
Yeah, you know what though?
have like
They are.
like
I feel like they're already pigeonholing things too, because I think they'll probably. I imagine we're going to see Survivor Series where it's 4 games again, right? Probably.
maybe
I'm guessing. But then that's the same. It's like that's kind of the pit that WCW fell in. It's like, oh, it's like it's the fall. We gotta have fall brawl. We gotta have like a war game match. It's like, why? And so it's like it makes sense. You could argue that Tony Khan maybe has used it a little too much, where it's like he wants to have a war games or blood and guts match every year, and I love that. Again, that's my favorite war games, of which that's sort of a variation. It's my favorite gimmick match of all time. So I would love to see one of those every. And he still does it though. He kind of almost, you could argue like he's pigeonholing it a little bit. If he at least it'll be like maybe this year it's in March, maybe next year it's in like August or something, where it's like let's have the flow of it.
It feels like that he likes to do that once a year, but it doesn't necessarily tie to like a specific time frame.
Hear out my pitch for a 2-night Survivor Series. So here's what you do: you lean heavier into Survivor Series, and then night 2, what you do is people that made it through and survived the matches, you reconfigure to more matches, and then you whittle it down, and you have an ultimate Survivor over 2 nights.
I understand where you're coming from, but out of the big 4, I think Survivor Series would be the bridge too far that would break the whole thing.
Well, see, I actually think you could make that work on the gimmick aspect of like the teams and eliminations and doing like something different. Like I think I don't think it'd be ideal, but I think there's something you could do by being different.
You could, but it just gut feeling is if you did Mania, you did SummerSlam, you did Rumble, then if you went to Survivor Series, that would be the thing that causes the house of cards to crash.
Yeah.
And so I just
it was my pitch. I do dislike the standardized like gimmick match pay-per-views though, like tables, ladders, and chairs, which I don't think they do anymore. Like Elimination Chamber, having Hell in a Cell is like a specific.
Yeah, that was god awful. And then it got to a point where tables, ladders, and chairs wasn't even good enough. It was tables, ladders, chairs, and stairs, and it's like, you had to add something else to it, yeah, because it wasn't good enough.
I mean, and then when they added the pit of lines that they could throw each other into, I thought was a bridge too far.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's head on to the main event of the night. So this is USWA TV. So we're doing. So if you don't know, we're doing the entirety of 1992 over the course of probably a year. I'm guessing we're doing 2 episodes at a pop to start with. Mr. James Noon, I actually haven't watched it all the way yet. I will probably get to it, but I haven't even finished like Dark Side of the Ring. Like I know some other people have talked about it. We could probably get a couple people on to talk about it another week. But have either of you guys watched the Mr. McMahon doc much?
I haven't. No, I don't have Netflix anymore. So, from what I have read, nothing in it shocks me. But I'm sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
I've heard, how long is it? 5 or 6 episodes? I've actually heard.
Yeah.
I think let's say it's 6. I think it's 6. But from what I've heard, it's 5 hours of almost like fluff.
Well, it's
that's kind of.
It's the Ringer and Schumacher who's a noted like. I mean, he's probably competent at doc, but like his knowledge of wrestling for being a wrestling historian is like laughably bad. Vectron says it's 6.
Okay, I've heard it's like largely like fluff, and then finally like the last episode they kind of they dig in a little on the Vince McMahon, and it's so and you have people like Bruce Pritchard, who of course people like Ronda Rousey has said like as long as Bruce Pritchard is there, like Vince's influence is not going to be gone from the WWE. Like he's Bruce Pritchard, when Bruce Pritchard talks, it's Vince McMahon's hand at the rear end, like. So Bruce Pritchard, like afterward, was like, "Oh, it's terrible, like hit piece and everything like that." And it's like it's fluff. It was fluff. That got mildly critical of Vince McMahon towards the end, but at the same time, again, mild criticism because this, from what I understand, I haven't watched it. I don't really have any like incentive to watch it or desire to watch it, but from what I have heard, it very much is essentially trying to portray, because Netflix, who's forming with Raw, has a vested interest in pressing this, is that, there was only one bad apple in the WWE, and it was Vince McMahon, and he's gone. We're all good now. Well, it's like,
I think it was fairly.
Just wait.
I think it
Y'all forget that the company is named in the lawsuit, and the company, individuals in the company, along with Vince McMahon, are being looked at through a federal investigation. So. Don't be too sure that by the time all the dust settles, because it's a law right now while the feds are investigating. The lawsuit hasn't even really gotten too deep. Just wait what happens, especially when Discovery starts rolling out. We'll see if all your beloved people or Dave Meltzer's good friend Paul, we'll see if they're still around.
I think
they're still around.
I think it didn't shy away.
Think that they will be.
I don't think it shied away from the Ring Boy scandal. I know I saw people talking about that. I might watch it eventually. The problem is, I'm just gonna be honest, like those history ones I really struggle with, because a lot of times I've read books about it. I've read different perspectives on it. I've read a lot of the ones at the time, and I'm honestly just a weirdo, and the inaccuracies get me.
Yeah. Or whenever they pass over or gloss over something, like, whoa.
Yeah.
You got 6 episodes of this and you're skipping over. Like, okay, the one of the clips that I saw did terrifically amuse me. When they were like, WrestleMania 3 in the Silverdome was this many, and it was this many, and Hogan goes, it was this many plus a little bit, and then Dave Meltzer goes, it wasn't that many.
Do
I
they
was in stitches
do
where
they
they would do that, and then Dave would cut them down immediately
yeah.
after.
do they
I
The
laughed my
funny
ass off.
Shad, the funny thing specifically about that is that they all threw out a number, and then Hogan just randomly took that number and added like 143.
Yeah.
And people were like, he literally just did this because Hulk Hogan is like basically a habitual liar and always has to
Yeah.
like bullshit and hype up everything. But it's like there's no reason to add 143.
I
It's
still
like
don't understand how you can be Hulk Hogan and be that insecure.
it's
I don't
like
get it.
do we actually
say-
know the real
say-
number that was there, like out of curiosity?
How tall are you, Shad? How tall are you?
6'3".
6'3". Okay, what if you like people ask your height and he's like, oh, I'm 6'3" and 1/4, and it's like it's like an
It doesn't
infinitesimal
change
amount. It's like
anything. Yeah.
you're not like I'm 6'4". You're
No.
not even like hyping up like an inch. You're like I'm 6'3" and a quarter. Like a little, I'm 6'3" and 2/10. It's like okay, who cares?
So
It's
that
it's such a
episode,
nonsense.
that episode has some great stuff to it because or that clip does, because right before it, Meltzer goes, Andre had been slammed several times before that, and they show clips of it. And then they're like, and you know, WrestleMania 30 had 93,000 people. 93,143, and Meltzer goes, it wasn't 93,000. It was 78.
You know what's funny about the Andre thing too is in their, is it 81? In their first feud, like when Hogan was a heel and Andre was the face, like Hogan pretty much like body slammed him around the circuit on that one. So it's a little. I guess they had a bigger fan base, but do we know the actual number, because I think I've seen like talk and they were trying to compare it to like when the Pope was there.
Yeah, something like that.
Sorry, I'm reading Vectron's thing. Oh, Vectron was giving Hogan admitting he was on steroids. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I like, because I imagine like the first part, like I read Death of the Territories. I think that was laid out pretty well in there. Especially like, I wonder if they went into like the financial issues they are having going into WrestleMania 1, because they don't like talking about that as a company. You know,
It's yeah.
like things like failing on TBS, like just there's some interesting things in there. How much the restaurant hurt them, because that's how they lost all that money in 2022. No, 2002. The WWE.
Oh,
The Universe?
New York.
Yeah,
New York? Oh yeah.
I went there, yeah. Food was not that great.
wasn't the service notoriously bad there?
I've never. You know who has been there or was there like a few times was friend of the show, Damian Gonzalez. Like
I bet he
went
was.
there, but he's from the area,
I mean,
so it's like it's easier.
I had been there twice. There were 2 trips I was on in college. One of them was to New York, and we're like, it's in Times Square, and we're like, well, we're here in Times Square. It's about dinner time, and I'm like, well, then I'm just going to walk over there. And then the other time, it was a trip to Philadelphia, and they're like, and by the way, we're doing a 1-day run over to New York as part of it. And I'm like, all right, fine. And I bought one thing that wasn't food there, and it was the Dead Man Incorporated shirt I still have around somewhere. But it wasn't great. It was just kind of there. It's who was it? I can't remember who said it, but it's like every time Vince tried to do something that Vince wanted to be more than just wrestling, but every time he tried to do something that wasn't wrestling, he failed at it. And
I think that's pretty common for an entrepreneur, though.
yeah, but
And I think I'm going to defend him on some of that. Like, they were trying a lot of avenues of merchandising, and a lot of it fell on its face. But like, I think like some of that you had to try and see if it would work, because like people like the popsicles and stuff. Like I think
throw it out there, see what happens.
yeah, like some of that, some of that's defensible. And like, I think what people don't realize too, especially with someone like Vince, is yeah, you're gonna fail a lot. Like that's how you eventually succeed. Like you know, it's kind of that cliche. You miss all the shots you don't take. So like I kind of like the bodybuilding thing was weird, but I think that was like a passion project that just was ill timed.
Yeah.
But so we're gonna hit the. You know what?
Brad.
James Nunn.
Brad.
I will take the hit, and I will try and watch that in the next 2 weeks. Like, and I'll comment on it. Not next week probably because we're doing a movie, but I'll watch it and I'll give my thoughts on it. Because 2 weeks should be enough for me to get through 6 episodes. Because I'm notoriously terrible at watching stuff, but I'll watch it.
Brad, since we mentioned WWE New York, I wanted to recall, like, I think they even were joking about it on the Laughs Fan, but the WCW WCW Nitro Grill
Oh God.
and like the menu, I looked it up. That was an actual restaurant too, and I looked up the menu.
Is that in Vegas?
And it's like, it's the dumbest. I don't know where it was, but I only many years after the fact realized it even was something that existed. But just the menu is ridiculous.
What about Pasta Mania, Matt?
Oh, yeah, Pasta
In the
Mania.
Mall of America.
Yeah. But listen to the menu. It's just this is one page of the Nitro Grill, a Sting burger,
Oh God.
pepper crusted and topped with bacon, Monterey Jack cheese, fried onion rings, lettuce, tomato, and special dressing. Why is that so busy? Hogan burger is just barbecue sauce, bacon, and cheddar cheese. That seems too bland for Hogan. Give him like the giant burger. The Diamond Dallas burger, aka the DDB.
Oh, God. I'm
I would've
already
punched
disgusted by this.
I would have punched them just for that. Smothered in Cajun spices and blackened, topped with sauteed onions, Monterey Jack cheese, and house dressing. Why would that be like? How you associate that with
Okay.
Diamond Dallas? Anyway, the gold burger, double decker half-pound patties topped with cheddar and Monterey Jack cheese, tag team to make this 1 pound burger. Wow.
Okay.
The Crippler cross-based cheesesteak.
Oh, that's no.
I don't know about that, guys.
Abort! No, dude,
Yeah.
we're not going there.
Bad.
It reminds me of. Oh my God! It reminds me of the damn. I bought it for my wife as a joke, but it was the WWE cookbook, and everything that was in it was done to be like way too There is no reason that the NW oats for oatmeal should have been that complicated. But by God, it had 12 ingredients.
Wouldn't you just
What?
Wouldn't you just like repurpose like a real cookbook and just change like some of the wording around and just like sell it like a basic bitch cookbook with like WWE like? Remember we
Apparently
did that,
not.
remember we did that merchandise episode, and I think they have Fanatical now because everything has to be Fanatical and ruin everything. Like every pro like league has Fanatical now. I think they are too. Remember the toaster that like burned the WWE logo in your toast? It's like, okay.
Oh yeah.
I think they're Fanatical now though, which pisses me off because like every sports league is Fanatical now. So anything sports related is just garbage because Fanatical sucks. So this is the USWA, so we're watching all 1992. I have a sneaking suspicion if the WWF invasion starts in 93, in 92, we might go into 93 a bit. But we'll get to that course when we get there. So this is the 118, the 125 shows. So we're going to start off. And we've actually covered this on a previous episode when we went over concession stand brawls. So this is the Moondogs and Jeff Jarrett and Jerry Lawler because Robert Fuller got knocked out off camera. And this is a concession stand brawl in some place in Missouri. I happen to remember this because of the building, because of that ugly yellow.
Mm.
But this has my favorite moment in wrestling, which is Jerry Lawler trying to drown one of the Moondogs in the sink.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And if you
that was a choice.
Yeah. And there's just trash cans everywhere. It's pretty much what we've seen the last 2 weeks, just a big old brawl. They're doing an interesting thing, and they do it on the second episode. So they show this at the top of the show and then at the very end of the show. So I'm guessing to try and keep people, like, if people missed some of it, they can watch it again, which is interesting. Now, what I think is interesting about this, and I looked it up, but they kind of wrote Robert Fuller out of this angle like really quick.
Yeah,
You told us. Sorry to cut you off, Shad. You
it's okay.
told us I guess about this that I guess Robert Fuller actually wound up was leaving the promotion in like a month. But when I saw that, I was like, when he basically when all of a sudden it was Jarrett and now Lawler versus the Moondogs. I was like, what happened there? Like two things either happened. One, either like this angle, like the feud was really hot, so Lawler's like, I need to get in on that and like cut Fuller out. Or more likely, like Fuller was just like leaving the territory, so they were just phasing him out. And that seems to be what was actually happening. Like Fuller was leaving, but it made me sad because it's like the first couple episodes, I was introduced to like actually seeing footage of Fuller being like awesome. And it's like, damn, I want to see more of this guy. And then it's like, oh, but yeah, now he's gone. Or he's leaving. And it's like,
He goes over to Smoky Mountain after this. But I had wondered. It's like, well, that's kind of weird. Like, and I had the thought of like, well, maybe they're gonna turn him heel. And then I looked it up on Cage Match, and I think his last match is like February 21st or something like that. So he's just moving along. What were you gonna say, Shad?
It's gone.
Oh, okay.
Just keep rolling.
Okay. So we get a promo from him, and they're doing. I guess he's gonna get a shot at old Richard Lee at the Mid South Coliseum show this week. So I have to say, now that I've had a couple of episodes with him, I like Richard Lee quite a bit as a manager. He does a lot very well.
I don't think he actually did a lot, like outside of USWA, and even then, like for like 2 years, 3 years, maybe.
Yeah, it seems like
And I
maybe
think
like a local car dealership guy or something that they brought in, or something.
yeah, in terms of managers though, like he was not bad. Like he was pretty good for the limited amount that he was on. Actually, it seems to be involved in wrestling. Right, like he kind of got it. Like there are some people who get wrestling or what the assignment is they need to do.
Yeah.
And well, he wasn't the best, but I mean, he was pretty good for what he did. He was effective. Like and actually, let me look at my notes. I actually wrote down like the Moondogs themselves were really over, and they were awesome. And it's like, well, how were they? How did they make them like someone who my experience with the Moondogs was basically like they were jobbers in like the like mid 80s or early 80s WWF. And now here it is like 92. And it's like these guys are awesome. Like I would want to take like these Moondogs from 92 and I want to see them infused with like, the Briscoes or even like FTR or stuff like that. I want to see like what craziness like they're gonna get involved in. And then just think of like the bloody brawls. Even like let's do heel versus heel, but like Moondogs versus sheep herders. Like what violence would they get up? They
I wonder if
they
that
were
actually
awesome.
exists.
If in theory it could, but they were awesome. And it's like, well, why? It's like, oh, because they just had them go out there and beat the shit out of people and be presented as threats, even though they were almost like, perennial jobbers back in the day. Like they just presented them as a threat
Well,
and made them actually look good.
Larry Latham is Spot, and he was in the original concession stand brawl with Wayne Ferris. Like he's a really good worker. Like if you watch house shows, he has like pretty good matches every time out. I think that's.
Is he the one who died in the ring?
Yes.
Was it Spot? Okay.
Yeah, he had a heart attack. And he had made like a couple of appearances in TNA. It was really weird timing. But and it's funny, I looked up what the Moondog gimmick originated from, and it's from like a song.
Kind of like Junkyard Dogs.
Yeah, I should have written it down. But
what was the gimmick supposed to be? Because it seems to me like they're trying to, I would think, kind of do a play on like the Manson family, like just violent.
So it originated with Moondog Maine in Portland in the
Okay.
70s, so I don't know. Because I'd wondered, I'd looked it up because I wondered if it was like some like weird like hill jack like lingo or something back in like the 60s that they kind of co-opted, but it was like it's from a song, but I don't know what the song is about. I might do my homework for the next episode on them.
You know what? I'll look for it right now.
Okay. But like, yeah, I think yeah, because like they're kind of just, I don't know, a couple of crazy ass kickers. But yeah, Latham's good. I think that really shows. It kind of shows why Necro Butcher was so good at what he did, because like to be that kind of crazy brawler, you have to have like the basic fundamentals under all of it down. Versus just, doing dumb stuff like a lot of death match guys.
Yeah.
do.
So the Necro Butcher and Nick Gage, and we'll throw Moxley in there too. These are guys who understand wrestling and then do the deathmatch stuff on top of it. I know I've said it before, but the reason I don't like the deathmatch stuff is because most of the people that see it and then decide to do it aren't the ones that have the grasp. They're the ones that suck and start doing the deathmatch stuff because, oh, well, that's easy.
Yeah.
I can do that. It's like, no, shit.
And it's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that. And if you were a better worker, you would understand why you shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, there's plenty of reason not to do it, but...
Okay, so then we have... Okay, so Robert Fuller beats... Hold on, I gotta look at his name. J.R. Alzado is what I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Alzado.
Oh, yeah.
This is just a
J.R.
squash.
Alzado.
Yeah, this is just a squash match. He works the leg a lot and beats him with an elbow drop. Typical TV squash match. So then we go to... Do you guys have any specific thoughts on this?
I did not love the fact that he gives his promo. I'm gonna get out there and I'm gonna whip some ass and I'm gonna give him what for and I'm gonna bust him open and all this sort of stuff. And then he goes in there and have a squash match and works the leg a bunch. And I'm like,
yeah.
And that feels like it takes a lot of wind out of the sails.
It's the problem we had with the Miracle Violence connection in WCW, where they would talk up this big game and then they're like, well, we're gonna start slow and take it easy from there.
Yeah. Oh, we're going to the Greco-Roman takedown.
Yeah. So then we get so this is kind of for the big main event, which is going to be Kamala defending the unified title against Koko B. Ware. We get a Koko promo. I don't know what I think of him doing like the singing promo thing. The content's good,
it.
the delivery, I don't know.
I like it because it's with everybody else we see there. It's always a lot of I'm going to rough voice and I'm yelling and I'm going to do this and then Koko is delivering a promo in a way that is unique and memorable without undermining it. So it's not like Emo Phillips doing a wrestling promo, which would totally take the teeth out of it. But the way he's singing it kind of fits with his presentation and makes it memorable and makes him stand out. So I'm down with it.
And then we actually get an appearance from Kamala, which I was wondering if we were ever going to see him on TV. But so he's getting the guy cutting the promo is actually someone that has a footnote in history. This is Dennis Corluzzo, who is notably one of the guys.
Wow, really?
That was Dennis Corluzzo.
Oh, wow.
So if you don't know, Dennis Corluzzo is one of the guys that Paul Heyman stabbed in the back when they did the whole like throwing the NWA title down, and he's pretty much like he was a very prominent indie promoter in the 90s.
Yeah.
Is he still alive? Huh.
That's a great question.
But yeah, that like I heard the name and I'm like, wait a minute, that's Dennis Corluzzo?
All right, hang on. Dennis Corluzzo died 2001, age 48.
Oh wow. That sucks.
He was wrestling promoter for the New Jersey division of the NWA.
Yeah.
Former president and board member.
That's actually 48's young.
Yeah, that's only a couple years older than us.
Let's see.
Although he did look young.
He had a brain bleed.
Oh God.
Ooh, went into a coma and died due to bleeding on the brain.
Yeah.
That's real bad.
Did he have like an aneurysm of some sort? It sounds like it's likely.
Yeah.
That could be.
Or maybe he suffered some sort of like traumatic brain injury. Because you just don't bleed from your brain unless something either traumatic has happened or you've had.
He could have had
like
a
an
widowmaker.
Yeah, he may
embolism.
have.
He could have had like some sort of embolism.
Yeah.
So then we get a Richard Lee promo. And, of course, our favorite weekly event here is the Moondogs murdering some poor schlubs.
Just destroy.
Yeah.
Some schmucks.
Yep.
Just killed them deader than hell.
I mean, they didn't bleed this time, so they killed them a little less than Fatty that they, like, absolutely murdered that one week.
So I got to bring this particular thing back. Dear God, the tables they pulled into the ring. It's like, oh yeah, oh holy crap! You're pulling. Wow. Could we maybe not, please? Because those are tables that it's like you're not going through them, and they're gonna hurt real bad when they fall on you.
Oh yeah, it's radical. It's almost like they had some sort of like table exchange with IWGP with New Japan. Like Japan's like, we have so many tables, guys. We need to give these tables to you guys. And it's like, oh, okay, yeah, sure. Like we're a small like other promotion. Please give us your tables. And it's like that. Basically, you could drop like an anvil on them, and they wouldn't even bounce. Like
Jarrett chucked. Like, I swear to God, my grandmother had, like, that table that Jarrett chucked at Spike, the second episode. Like, that was not a light table that he, like, threw on him.
Oh, well, not to skip ahead, not to skip ahead to the second episode, but just in general, like, at this point in his life, Jared was, like, fucking jacked. I was like, is this cut off the head? And it's like, is this like John Cena in the ring? Like he was like built.
Yeah.
He was
built out, but he's like chucking 100-pound tables around. Like
I kind of gave that to the credit of, being young and flush with testosterone and energy, easier to build at that point.
Yeah, and you got Brickhouse Brown getting him around. Sorry, I won't use the quote. It's my favorite. It's my shoot interview quote.
Miss Texas, Jackie, you better watch yourself.
If you want a hilarious line, watch the Brickhouse Brown like shoot interview preview because he's just sitting there smoking a cigarette, and he's just dropping like some like grade A like stuff. Like I love Brickhouse Brown. He's such a great character. I'm sad he's dead, unfortunately.
I'm looking forward to on YouTube. Kayfabe Commentaries is going to drop the Awesome Kong shoot interview on their YouTube channel, and just from the clips I've seen, I'm looking forward to watching that whole thing because it's going to be. He just has a way of phrasing so much stuff that cracks me up. The way that who was it she went after?
Oh, she went after quite a few people. She said she threw a shoe at Scott Steiner in a Waffle House or something.
What was was it Raka Khan or something?
Yeah, because she didn't pay her mom for babysitting or something.
Yeah. Oh my God, she just flipped out on her, and it's like she just flips on her and cracks me up.
And
okay, sorry.
No, we're fine. I was reading the chat. So let's see. We have a recap of the strap match, which is just pretty much everyone beating everyone up. So then we get. So this is pretty much. So this segment we get like the faces come out. They have their straps. They cut their promo. Then the heels come out, and then everyone starts like strapping each other. But I have to point out. And this is a multiple episode thing, and I don't want to be too critical on her because I think she was just someone's girlfriend or something. But CJ terrible, absolutely terrible. Like if I was Miss Texas, I would have beat her ass for like whipping me in the meaty part of my legs like she was.
Oh,
And
well, I feel like the second episode has like a segment which I want to talk about. But yeah, like she was not good. She was almost historically bad in terms of like you should not be in this world. Like maybe you can be like a Miss Elizabeth style ballet where you just like walk around, but don't get involved. Like don't.
yeah,
You hurt someone.
yeah,
And
yeah.
especially with someone like Jackie. Like Jackie was young in this. I feel like Jackie, I think Jackie's a little older than you think. I think she's like 60 or something. So, but she was still probably like 30. But just old. It's not like she's 20. I think, but she was still young enough that she probably was like, all right, let me be nice to this really really bad white girl. Like, because she could have tuned her up. I mean, Jackie.
No, she was
We've
even
seen some Jackie before.
she
She's
was even
tough.
nice about the when she was strapping her back. She was exceedingly nice about it when she didn't have to be.
Yeah, and didn't CJ start using like a thin belt?
Yes.
Yeah, it's like, oh, that's a no.
Because there's like
Um,
there's points in the second episode where they have like her strap people and like she's just like tap, 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 and it's like, dear God, can you at least do it like you mean it? But I kind of like this segment. So then they wait, is this? Wait, did I hold on? I gotta look here. I might have written it down wrong. I think there's a point. So there's a point where I think Falk and Embry go in the ring, and then I think Dirty White Boy and Pritchard come out like after they're trying to get them opponents, and then they come out and it all starts all over again. Like I think is what happens. I didn't write that down right, so I'm sorry about that. Which is I like this segment. They've done really well with this kind of like mid card menagerie of guys, and this is kind of across like all the episodes so far. But like Eric Embry is really good as a heel. Like he's consistently entertaining in all of this stuff.
So, Brad, do you know a little bit about him?
He's a
I only
Texas
asked because
guy.
I don't know much about him other than I would see pictures and I would hear about him
So
a
he,
little bit way back in the day, the 90s, when I actually would occasionally get like the after mags because there was a couple local grocery stores in like their magazine section. They actually would have like the Pro Wrestling Illustrator, the after mags, and I would periodically like beg my mom to buy one. And so I had like I didn't have like 100 issues, sorry, of the after mags, but I had like dozen or so. Like every other month for a couple of years, I would get my mom to buy them for me. But I would see him, but I don't really know anything about him. This is like literally like the first footage I'm actually seeing of him.
So he was a Texas guy. He booked World Class for a while. He was towards the end of that, and I think he kind of got involved with Memphis when the USWA split between it and Texas. So I think they're bringing him up for a run because they were working with him from Texas, and he booked a lot, and he was mostly a Texas guy, and he really didn't get like a lot of opportunities in the big leagues because like he's just not like he's unfortunately just wasn't built like where WCW or WWE would be interested in him.
He doesn't have the look. He's not particularly tall, it seems.
Yeah, he's a little pudgy.
He's a pudgy guy. Like if he
Right.
was in either company, he'd probably be as like a job guy. Like that's the look.
The hell of it is, though, and this is something we mentioned that modern wrestling is better about earlier in the show. That's great for a really shitbag heel.
No,
If
it
you
is.
have, yeah,
Oh, yeah.
and, you want if you want a heel that has absolutely nothing redeeming about him, have a guy who's not in shape and completely in denial about the fact.
Oh yeah.
This is the body that all women want. And it's like, dude, you're hanging over your belt, and it's like, you mean my abs? And you're like, no, your gut. And it's like, I got abs, right?
Cool.
But nobody wants to let that roll on a big
Didn't
stage.
you work
it
with a
feels
guy
like.
that was doing that gimmick, Shad?
Oh yeah, but it was hilarious.
Didn't
He
you
was
say?
leaning into it
Didn't you say
because
he was
it
like?
worked.
Didn't he do like a segment you said where he was like hitting on someone and he was like eating a Wendy's burger while he was
Yeah,
doing it? Or
he was hitting on the backstage interviewer eating a cheeseburger at the same. Like the heel stable does a promo, and they all go to leave, and he's holding the cheeseburger in his hand, eating it. And goes, and he looks at the interviewer, and goes, "What are you doing later?" And it was great because at first he was so like not down for it, but he was one of those guys who had the stout strength going. But then after he leaned into it and started wearing the tights, not even the singlet, but just the tights, it took his heat through the roof.
You know who's a great
So,
example of being a schlub though and making it work is James Ellsworth. He got a job off of that.
For a
And
little
like
bit.
got pretty over like
Yeah, that's true. Until things, but yeah.
Allegations.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Shad, I would agree. Like you kind of want a guy to be like a little sloppy, like just look a little sloppy. Like not like the biggest dude. Like he's not like Bash and Booger level gross, but it's also like a gut, like a little.
Yeah.
You're a little heavy.
No,
Like you're
like,
not really.
People love a dad bod.
Yeah. Well, since we just watched some footage of him, but like a guy who literally like made his great worker, but kind of made a career at that. Buddy Rose, Playboy Buddy Rose. It's like, I'm so amazing or whatever. And it's like, but the funny thing was like, because we saw like Buddy Rose actually had size to him, and I'm talking about like gut. I mean, he was tallish, like, and when he didn't have like quite the pounds on him, it was like not like you're not. No one's gonna mistake you for like the body guys of your era, but he had some size to him.
Yeah.
yeah.
I talked before, but like even guys like Bobby Heenan like was actually much bigger than he thought he was.
Yeah. It was just who he was around made him look small.
Here's my advice if you're an indie worker and you want to be a sleazebag heel. Okay. So here's my thing. Get your hair kind of greasy when you go out. Number 1. Number 2, if you can grow like a really ratty beard or goatee, do that. Secondly, third, if you have like a decently hairy chest, stop shaving your chest. Like, and if you have back hair, that's even better. Be a little gross, but and maybe consider like a sleazy haircut. A mullet is always good for being a sleazebag, even in 2024.
That was one thing I did in my last heel run is I'm a hairy chested dude, and I was just like, singlet, let's go, let's see. And oh god, people hated that. Hey, chest hair, what's wrong with you? And I'm like, oh, you ain't got the testosterone to grow any, do you?
And I think the other good one is if you wanna add a little touch to it, like wash your gear and stuff, but maybe like get it in a little dirt before you go out, so you look a little dirty.
Depends on the gimmick.
Yeah, that's true.
Depends on the gimmick. If you're doing the Playboy Buddy Rose thing, then nah, don't do that. But present yourself as all clean and everything.
I actually think the Playboy Buddy Rose thing could work if you had like a spaghetti stain like on like something, and you just like no sell that it's there the whole time.
I don't know. I have to think about it.
There's some mileage you could get out of stuff like that. So then we get so Jarrett and Lawler come out looking like the 90s threw up on both of them.
Yeah. Was this the one where they were wearing the pink and teal?
Yeah, I think Jarrett had the neon green crap, and
Yeah.
Lawler had like this abomination of like a pink and something.
Yeah, I wrote in my notes like they had the most. Lawler and Jarrett had the most ridiculous like day glow outfits, and again, people may be young, some people may be old. Maybe people older than us to watch this, but it's like people forget, they don't recall unless you're in that era. Like the early 90s, I don't know why it was like it was like maybe it was the tail end of the 80s because the 80s got into like the day glow crap.
Yeah.
But in the early 90s, it was like neon. but it's like weird neon. And I know this. I keep mentioning. I mentioned it before. Like I collected like GI Joes when I was a
Oh,
kid.
I hated when GI Joe they were all neon
yeah,
and stuff. It's like I just
GI
want...
Joe like shifted. It's like this is like ostensibly. I know there's fantasy elements and everything. I mean, at some point they created like bats, battle android troopers. It's like there's science fiction elements in this. Okay, I
Yeah.
get it, but it's ostensibly like based on military. There's ninjas, so it's like it's a bit ridiculous. But even then, it's like, oh, we're putting out a new like like Duke figure. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, Duke, one of the main GI Joes, and it's like, yeah, here he is in like neon yellow and green, and it's like,
Yeah.
what? How am I supposed to? What is he gonna wear that shit on the battlefield?
I remember,
like,
and I remember in that era, like all my friends all had this one like Flint figure because he had actual camouflage on
oh yeah,
towards the end. But
yeah,
it'd be like, hey, look at this guy, he's got bright pink on. It's like, okay, sure.
why?
Yeah.
How is this military?
I was gonna go for the GI Joe thing exactly because I was like 11 at the time and it drove me ballistic with GI Joe because it just ruined it.
Oh yeah.
It's when you need to blend in an 80s arcade. It's what it is.
I feel like I don't feel like that was so much an 80. It must have been like tail end of the 80s, but I feel like that was such like a up to the mid 90s kind of thing.
Late 80s, early 90s.
Because I say 80s because you did see some big lists in the 80s, but it was oddly like in the early 90s for some reason. I don't even know why culturally it was. I was a kid, so I just like
I think because
noticed it was there, but
I think why it stuck around is because like it did fit like that 90s extreme where everything had to be big and loud. So you had like big loud colors. For the time.
It was the zeitgeist of the time, because I remember if you like the time when you went to like Pizza Hut and you were doing Book It, and sometimes you also got some Pizza Hut sunglasses to go with it. They would be in those colors, but with like the jagged shapes around the lenses and stuff like that.
Do you remember?
Chad, I hope you're not disrespecting the Book It program.
I'm sorry. Where did I disrespect it? I said when you went for the Book It program.
Our society arguably took a nosedive once that program ended. Like it's been all downhill from there. All downhill.
I'm 100%
we want to fix
with
our
you.
problems. This is
Bring
my
back
platform.
Book It.
Vote for me for president of the United States. My sole platform would be like, Book It program, guys. It's gonna go nationwide. I'm gonna be like, you know what? I'm even gonna open up to adults, but I want y'all to read. I want y'all to read some books. I don't care what it is.
Read books.
Read your damn Harry Potter for all I care.
I'm not talking magazines. I'm not talking websites. I'm talking that you're gonna pick it up and you're gonna open the cover. You're gonna turn the pages, brother, and you're gonna get something out of those words in your brain. And when you do, the reward at the end of the rainbow is gonna be that personal pan waiting for you right there.
I'm very pro this for adults because there is a number of adults between about the age of 25 and 40 that I'm like, okay, here's this program. For the love of God, please read something that's not Harry Potter. Please, I'm begging you. Something that's not Harry Potter.
I can't bag on having a comfort series. He said very pointedly not looking at his Wheel of Time shelf. But yeah, you gotta broaden out a little bit more than that. Find some stuff that's similar that'll either scratch a similar itch or find a whole new itch to scratch.
Yeah, I would actually recommend the Game of Thrones books. They are very long but very easy reads.
Mm-hmm.
Even though Cersei's a raging dumbass and
he's never going to finish those books. But
no. I saw someone the other day put out a list of stuff he's written since he finished the last book, and it's like prequel books and a bunch of short stories and all this sort of stuff.
Elden Ring.
And it's like, oh yeah, no. He gave them his real ending, and now he doesn't know how to end it because everybody hates it.
I just don't understand. Just rewrite it. Put Jon Snow on the throne. Everyone will be happy.
Yeah, just take what's in the show, get to the end where Jon Snow is in the place of the king, and then done. That's it.
Yeah. Or have Tyrion shank everyone and then just laugh as the series ends, because I think that would also go over okay.
Mhm.
I don't think Tyrion would want to deal with all. Tyrion would be like,
He's literally the smartest character in the whole series, other than maybe Jon. But like,
I mean
it's
that's his thing, yeah.
you have this point though, like, because our friend Justin said Ned, and I'm like, no, like Ned was just a little naive. Like, I don't think he understood like how actually stupid Cersei is, and how no one backed him because she's so easy to play that they had more self interest in like keeping her and stupid Joffrey around. I've never seen. She's actually a remarkable character, and I mean in a well written way, that she always manages to make it worse. Like her decision
Caesar,
always makes it worse.
there are one thing. It took me a little while when I was younger to get was that just because I hate a character and think they're dumb, or hate a character and think that they're as a person, awful, that doesn't mean that it's a bad character. That means it's a well written, stupid character, or it could mean that. That's or a well written,
Uh,
selfish, or well written, misguided, or
It's
well written, entitled brat character,
it's
something like that.
only a bad character if the world doesn't push back on their selfishness. Like you can tell it's like a bad, like if the character annoys you and you can tell it's like a bad character is like when it's a self insert and like they don't face any consequences for their horribleness.
mm.
Yeah.
She might be well written in the sense that like she's what I presume is meant to be someone who is clearly just completely an idiot and out of her depth
I think
and does
she's
always make the wrong choices, but thinks that she's like amazing
I
and
think the
brilliant.
problem is
And
she's smart enough to scheme, but she's impulsive and she wants instant gratification, which means she always makes the wrong choice because she always takes the quickest, easiest path to what she wants, which is usually not the correct path. And she
yeah,
doesn't think about the consequences.
she almost has like the emotional maturity of like, a toddler essentially, because it is like the instant gratification.
You mean like aerostatic
Like,
royalty would have?
yeah. Yeah, that's like my almost 5-year-old. It's like I literally could go to her and be like, well, you can have one cookie right now, or tomorrow, wait till tomorrow, and I'll give you 2 cookies. It's like, well, you think like, oh, I could have 2 cookies tomorrow. She will literally like almost 10 times out of 10 be like, I want the cookie now.
Yeah.
It's like, but if you literally wait, you can have 2.
Yeah, it's the marshmallow experiment.
Yeah.
But they redid the marshmallow experiment, I don't know, maybe 10, 12 years ago with controls on it, because the first time they did it, they didn't control for socioeconomic status. So kids that came out of lower income families were like, no, if I don't eat this now, then there won't be anything later.
Yeah.
So when they controlled for it, there's still the impulse thing. But yeah, I mean, and like you said, she's 5. She hasn't learned impulse control yet.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
the thing. My daughter is very smart, but it's also like she's 4. So she'll be like, well, I want a cookie now, so I'm going to choose now.
Mhm.
But when you're dealing with someone who's supposed to be like, an adult woman in the books,
That has a
it's
country.
like you should not be this dumb.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm in the sense of completely no impulse control.
No, that's her big problem. So then,
Ned, I would argue Ned was smart. Ned was just like incredibly naive.
he
Where it's
made
like you're
one
expecting
mistake.
people to act in like the same level of morality and honor as you, and it's like you do not. And I think that it was intentionally done. I think
Well, I think
his death
I
was
think
supposed to be. I think Jay like Martin actually like showing you like that this is like actually the dichotomy of the world. Ned was too almost like naive. He misjudged the world that he lived in, where it's like he expected people to act like this, and this is not the world you're living in. Like no one's actually going to. You do this, like they're going to cut your head off.
I don't even think it was.
That's the world you are in.
I don't even think it was. He expected them to act with morality. I think it was actually he expected them to act with logic and long-term like foresight, like that he saw like how things should have been, and he was like naive because I think even like picking Stannis was dumb. Like I think that was dumb. But like I also think he understood like if they fucked it up like they did, like it was going to cause what happened with everyone declaring themselves king. And I think Joffrey was just a terrible choice. Like I just think his problem is he was very logical and he expected other people to be logical. And I think he underestimated how much like everyone was playing the queen, so their self-interest was getting her further up the ladder because that allowed them to get more access to power, which I think is where he kind of went wrong. So then so this next match is Jarrett and Lawler beat Domino and Leatherface with, is it Ned the Rat? Speaking of Neds, but this is so weird, like because he's just like they're talking like this Ned the Rat character has like some station there, but he's managing jobbers.
I've never seen this guy or heard of this guy, whatever. Leatherface, I've only heard because it is a gimmick that I know like IWA Japan, I think, used, but
there were a lot of
I think you
Leatherfaces.
said, okay, I guess you said it's just not that Leatherface.
Because it's just
and this,
they're doing an easy like movie knockoff.
yeah, this Leatherface is a lot slimmer than the IWA Japan Leatherface, but it's also like, this is 92. I feel like that the Japanese Leatherface was like mid 90s, so it's like, well, and I guess in theory this could be the same worker, just like heavier, but I guess
think
it's not.
so.
I don't know.
The general
I actually
rule,
didn't catch the name of the job, the mass jobber guy that he was tag teaming.
Domino.
But all of a sudden, it's like this dude in like, he looks like a homeless guy, and he thought what I thought was like a toy rubber rat, but it's like, no, that's not a real rat. He's like crawling around on his shoulders. And I'm like, who is this guy? Who is this guy? Like, even in the context of like wacky wrestling managers, it's like, what is this guy's purpose? It's weird.
Yeah, he's like Fagin. I'm not gonna tell you what that reference is from just because I wanted to throw something snooty out there. There was a dog movie. Hey. There was a dog movie based on it, so it's not like totally out there.
No, I'm just like, wow, that's a.
Didn't expect Dickens with your wrestling.
No. Well, if you want the truth, I'm not a big fan of Dickens in general. Like, some of it's okay, but largely I'm not a.
Amazing.
I feel like I've read A Tale of Two Cities, and I feel like he lost a bet.
A Tale of Two Cities is legitimately great.
I feel like he lost a bet to see how many names he had to like throw in that book. I don't particularly like A Tale of Two Cities. I might want to reread it. I do, as an adult, I appreciate Great Expectations a lot more than I did as like a teenager.
That's the one that I think of. And I'm sorry, and Christmas Carol. Okay,
Christmas Carol, yeah. Christmas Carol is probably his most enduring work. I actually, you know what? I'm gonna defend Dickens. I'm a Dickens fan. I think he deserves like his status as.
I mean, South Park did a complete satire of Great Expectations, so that one's pretty enduring too.
Yeah,
I think Great Expectations is great. I like David Copperfield.
I'm
not as big on Oliver Twist, but I think that I think it deserves its status as a classic. Tale of Two Cities, I love. Some of the other stuff, it's more the lesser known stuff, or it's not as great. Like Pickwick Papers, like, but
I've read some of his other stuff.
What a podcast we are. We're talking about. Like,
we're all over the place, man.
And now we're talking about. I think that David Copperfield is better than Pickwick Papers.
I mean, it's what happens.
I love the randomness of this.
We are weird as hell, man.
It's what happens when you have a bunch of weird ass, like well-read people that have like a hobby like wrestling. I mean, there's some weird stuff if you want to like get into it we could just do a random episode where we talk about random stuff, but like I have all sorts of weird stuff I can talk about.
Just the stream of consciousness episode.
Is Isn't that? I was gonna say, like, isn't that almost every episode? It's at certain points, at least. Not the theme of the entire episode,
Like,
but I think every
like,
episode
I've
digresses into
never-
like all of a sudden we're talking about like, I think that the 1960 BC Roman Empire. Like, what are we talking? Why do they get into this conversation?
Look,
Why do we have the?
I could have that conversation. I'm not going to. I will say though, there's a point on the show where I do need to go over my thesis. And I've helped a lot of people get through Romeo and Juliet by telling them, like, it's actually not a love story. It's actually a very dark comedy about how stupid young people are.
Oh yeah, 100%. You know what? Here, we will do a Shakespeare episode later.
And
how's that sound? Wrestling podcast does a Shakespeare episode later. We'll get to it.
And Macbeth is his best work.
Macbeth probably is his best work. It actually, I think, probably narratively, and in terms of like character design,
theming wise,
character
it's probably up there too.
Yeah, it's the most I feel complete. But I've grown to like a lot of stuff like Titus Andronicus. I think that's how you pronounce it. I forget.
Yeah,
that's kind of skyrocketed up for me, like in terms of like liking it. But that's dark. When he gets dark, and that's an interesting proposal, like Romeo and Juliet's a dark comedy.
I mean, it is when you think about it. When you think about it,
they necessarily care for that.
They kill each other, and if you really break it down, they kill each other, and they saw each other one time and like met each other one time in person, pretty much. They like met twice, and they killed.
Let's save the breakdown for later because this could get really. But I think I might go with Hamlet as being his best work.
Hamlet's good.
I probably prefer Macbeth more, but Hamlet is a good answer. You can't go wrong with Hamlet.
Yeah. Let's save this for the episode. Let's save this for a different episode because this is half my job, is trying to drag us back over to the original point. And then being like, well, when I was in the ring.
So I couldn't decide.
Ruining our fun.
I couldn't decide on this match if Leatherface sucked or if he couldn't see because of the mask.
It was not a good mask. It literally was like
I wonder,
Halloween store mask. Like, how can you see jack shit out of that? It's like it's clear like latex.
I wonder if they used Leatherface, because I was thinking like Leatherface is kind of like a weird, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre in the early 90s wasn't like that big of a thing compared to other stuff. And I was like, I wonder if they went with this because they could get away with it because of it was like a weaker copyright holder that they could get away with the Leatherface character.
Probably. Although I wrote down in my notes, it's like Jarrett in a match with Leatherface, and it's like years later, like they would have a.
Oh yeah, that's true.
Jarrett now is still like the reigning Leatherface, AEW Leatherface,
Texas Chainsaw Massacre. God, can you imagine? Like TK comes backstage, like, well, we've got a promotional opportunity with Texas Chainsaw Massacre or something. And Jarrett's like, I have experience with this. I've done this, and they're like.
Oh, I know that guy.
Do you think Jarrett even remembers wrestling? It was actually, I'm going to say, it wasn't a bad Leatherface costume. I was actually kind of impressed. It was halfway decent.
It as a costume decent, but as a wrestling gear,
it's if you're like, I'm going to go to a Halloween party, sure, but like I'm going to go wrestle like a 5-minute match even with two guys, I'd be like, no.
I have a theory that Domino is Fatty that the Moondogs gigged a couple weeks earlier under a mask.
Oh, what was his name?
Domino.
Oh, the original.
They just put an assassin mask on some schlub. They did it with Mephisto the next week.
Koko B wearing Candyman faced Scorpion in the Shadow. Was he one of them?
No, they weren't fat enough to be Domino.
Oh, I see.
So they win the match. It's not a bad little squash. So then we get they do a rematch. They do a replay of Jarrett and Fuller versus the Moondogs from the Mid-South Coliseum. It's exactly what you think. Then there's a Jarrett and Lawler promo. Jarrett flubs a line. It happens. He had brain lock. But it's they're cutting a promo on the Moondogs. So then they replay the concession stand brawl at the end of the show. So we're gonna go to 125, and so they show what I would call an absolute riot of a match to start the show off. And I mean it is awesome. Like I thought it was like a good 12 to 15 minutes, and I thought this was just a world class like A+ brawl.
This was fantastic. This is the thing that I guess, having seen now 4 episodes, basically the January TV for 1992 for USWA. I appreciate this, and again, going back a few years into this podcast when we talked about NWA Power.
Yeah.
Like you wouldn't see a lot of marquee matches, which that was the way it used to be, but WCW Nitro and WWF/WWE Raw changed our brains that we expect, like, what would have been like pay-per-view matches or big show matches on weekly TV. And nowadays people even complain more with AEW, where it's like, why are you putting this big match on TV? It's like, because they don't do like monthly pay-per-views. So maybe they have like the big match on TV, like, why are you complaining, basically?
And
But
they're getting $200 million a year. They should probably put some good stuff on TV.
Yeah, but point is, this, like, a studio show is what the norm was. So this is what you would get. You would get TV where it's like, it's predominantly just either running angles or giving promos or like clips of stuff. But it was largely just squash matches where it's like, Lawler and Jarrett are going to team up to beat up like a couple of like schmucks, or the Moondogs are going to go murder some jobbers. But the thing that I've learned is, like, the shit that all that's promoting, the matches for the big shows, like the weekly, like Mid-South Coliseum, whatever, like that they're promoting, like that's the real stuff. And not all of it was televised, but the stuff that we've been seeing, like the clips of it, I'm like, God damn, I want to watch like so many of these matches, because I bet at the minimum it's entertaining. Like from the January, I'm sorry to cut you off, Brad. From the January 18th, I just to finish my thought. From the January 18th, from that, it's like the Koko versus Kamala match that they did, like Koko did his weird singing promo. It's like, in my mind, I'm like, if you had told me just randomly, it's like, hey, do you want to see like a Koko B. Ware versus Kamala match? I'd be like, that's probably not good. Like, why would I want to see that? But now seeing like just the context of this, like, it's early 90s, 92, like Memphis. Koko is like on loan from WWF, and Kamala's like hanging around. It's like, but they're kind of have built to this. I'd be like, maybe I actually want to see that. That's kind of weird, but that actually might be somewhat entertaining, and I want to see it.
Well,
like and that's nowhere near the level I feel like Moondogs versus whomever.
Yeah.
Jarrett Lawler, Jarrett Fuller.
I
but
think
yes, my long-winded take is that this was awesome.
Well, here's the way I look at these shows in this era. It is these are essentially infomercials for the live shows. That's how I look at this. This is an infomercial. It's an hour-long infomercial. Come see the live show. That's how old wrestling is, and I think it works really well in that sense. But like I said, this brawl is awesome. Like Jarrett just like straight up chucks like this big old table at one of them, and Richard Lee gets. I love the way Lawler just kind of casually walks up to Richard Lee at the end and fireballs him. But I am gonna say, so Eddie Marlin gets involved, and he, in my opinion, the Moondog shouldn't have attacked him, but he got what he deserved for like sticking his nose in like in a big brawl. Like, of course you're gonna get punched. Like, why are you being dumb? Also, and I mentioned it last episode, but so if you don't know who Eddie Marlin is, he is Jerry Jarrett's father-in-law and Jeff Jarrett's granddad. And he was a wrestler back in the day. But yeah, this was awesome. It was just a total mess of a match. I appreciated the fact that there weren't any unprotected chair shots to the head.
I wrote that down somewhere. How much I appreciate the fact that when the Moondogs wail on somebody with a chair, they do not whack them over the head with it.
Well, if they do go for
Um,
if they do go for the head, which Jarrett went like up on them, but it's not like ECW where they just take on the head, they go like this. So it's not.
And I
it-
mean, why wouldn't you?
Yeah. And it's not like AEW where they do it, but it's a gimmick chair and they're like, well, it's safe. Like, no, it's just less dangerous, but it's not safe. Like, stop trying to weasel around it. Like put your hands up, please. Because we all saw what happened with a gimmick chair when Cody got his head split open because they. What went wrong with that spot? Do you remember, Shad?
It was that whenever the chair came over, it didn't turn all the way enough. I don't think it hit square. I think it hit sideways. So the edge of it cut the back. Like if it had come down flat and it had broken, no big deal. But the back, like the edge of it came around and cut the back of his head.
Okay.
It's like, I can't imagine that the chair shot that Hangman did to Swerve in that lights out cage match, like that thing had to be gimmicked all to hell. I cannot imagine that they're asking one of their new top stars to take a shot like that without doing all kinds of light and magic to take care of it. Like, is it balsa wood replacing the bolts that hold the seat in place? Is the seat replaced with something else that looks the same, makes a big sound, but like does not carry the same impact? I don't know, but I cannot imagine that it was just, hey, Swerve, we're gonna do this.
The Jungle Boy one that people were upset about, like you could tell that wasn't a real chair because you could tell by the way it moved that it was very flimsy. Like you could, like I think that one was like it was more probably like a giant, like I think it was a custom built, like it was kind of more like a baking sheet to make a big noise. But like I said, like if that one you tried to sit in, that one would have just crumpled because it wasn't real. But like, yeah, sometimes like, well, the chair was gimmicked. Like I don't care. Like you could like work around it. But I did appreciate that they were safe with the chair shots, which goes back to when Sid wrestled Cronus and Cronus just took that one straight up off the head and Sid's like, no, we're not doing this crap, and turned him around and just hit him in the back a couple times. Like I appreciated Sid in that moment for being like a professional.
Yeah. Look, I for another reason that I would prefer the chair shot across the back is it's way easier to sell that big. You take one over the head, what do? You fall down, that's it. You take it across the back, you can like arch and like
you get a better noise out of the back too.
Better noise, better visual, like it's just I think it's just all around better practice, but
yeah. So then we get more house show footage when we come back. So this is the Embry Dirty White Boy match. But I thought this was stupidly fun. The bit we got of it. And then, so this ends because CJ throws powder in his eyes. The one thing she gets right. But then they kind of do this thing where they're whipping him. And they have CJ do it. And she's kind of like tap, tap. And I'm like, oh my gosh, you can't even do this right. And then Dirty White Boy chases her around with the strap a bit. And then we come back and Eric Embry's all mad because, you know, what happened. He's ranting and raving. He gets in there with Bart Sawyer is beating him up. And then he gets DQ'd because he calls CJ in to whip him. More terrible whipping from her. And we go to commercial here. So now this
Embry, hold on. Embry is like ridiculous in this, but he also is like shouting at it. It's like, you got whipped by a woman. Dirt. Well, it's funny. It's like, you're gonna whip by a woman, white boy, and he keeps calling him because it's Dirty White Boy. But I mean, he's calling him white boy, and I just like laughing because obviously like modern sensibilities. It's like it's funny to see this like big sloppy, fat, pasty white dude calling another guy like white boy, and it's like, well, that was his gimmick name, but it's still kind of funny to be like,
based on
you got whipped by a woman, white boy, and it's like, oh boy, this is like unintentionally funny.
Another one?
Dirty White Boy?
Yeah. He's one. Yeah. WWE really missed the boat on him. I really like Tony Anthony, which is his real name. He was the plumber, and TL Hopper is who he was in WWE. They
It
could have
was a
done.
missed opportunity. He was actually a pretty good worker.
Yeah, he's a good talk. He's a pretty good talker too. Like, I mean, he could have been a decent mid carder for him.
Can I go back 1 second real quick?
Yeah.
Because you guys mentioned this through kind of our group chat, but Jarrett and Lawler, when you mentioned this, but when they threw chair shots, they actually, you said it, Brad, like it's actually like relatively safe chair shots. They did not, they weren't the dangerous, cringe-inducing chair shots that you would see like even a few years later, late 90s.
Oh, you don't. I mean, I think once you get to like Hack Myers and ECW by like 94, 95, you're getting that dumb crap.
Yeah, but I because you said that, I actually like when I watched this, I paid special attention to every time they were throwing a chair shot, because everyone like got chair shots in that Moondogs Jarrett Lawler match. Even the ref got a chair shot at some point.
The poor ref got beaten up pretty good.
He got beaten up, but when you said like, oh, actually the chair shots were safe, and I watched, and it's like they did do head chair shots, but if you watch, I don't know if like they were trained this way or they're doing it specifically this way, but like they would do a chair shot, but it's almost like it wasn't in slow motion, but it's almost like they did it in a way that it was a slight delay. It's like it was very telegraphed, I guess is the best way to put it. But like if like I'm like Shad, because you were a worker, let's say like I'm gonna have a match with you, and I'm like televising, I'm like, I'm gonna hit you with this chair, big dramatic, and I'm throwing it. I'm not like slow mowing. I'm like, I'm making obvious it's coming. You are like, you put your hands up.
So what I think,
and so what's the chair shot going to do? Hands every time.
So what
and
I think
you
they
put
did,
your hands close to your head to make it look like, oh, I'm hitting him in the head. And I watched, and that's exactly every time. Even the ref, everyone did. Like Jarrett and Lawler did that in a way that every time the Moondogs put their hands up, the ref even put their hands up. So that's where like the impact was. And I'm like, damn, I never noticed that. And obviously this is justice. I'm not saying that that's how everyone took chair shots, but they did that specifically in this match. And it was like, damn, because it looked visually, it did exactly what it needed to do. It's like, oh, you're getting a chair shot, but it was safe because everyone had the opportunity to put their hands up. And if somehow they actually like were to hit them hard, it's because the guy didn't put their hands up. It's not because of the lack of Jarrett or Lawler in trying to make it safe for their opponents.
So what I think they did,
looks safe.
So I watched them do it a couple times. And so what I think they did is, so they're not just wildly swinging it at them, which I think makes a huge difference. So what I think they do is they go up like this, and they come forward, and then they just kind of let the momentum of the chair fall on them. Instead of like swinging it the whole way. So they're kind of like, it's kind of coming down with some, it's not coming down with a lot of force, but it looks like it is. So like you go like this and that's enough to diffuse it versus just like going like, and just like smacking the shit out of someone with it.
Yeah.
Where you got all that velocity,
and
velocity in it.
And the person taking it can obviously make it more impressive because again, they're using their hands, but they could also like, as it comes down, they could be slapping to an extent, obviously slapping the chair, and with the flat of their palms, broad area of the chair seat, it could sound like, it doesn't have to be like super loud, but just the slap of that, it could be like, oh my god, that's the chair cracking their skull, and it's like, well, no, it isn't. Mm-hmm. But if you're not being anal and watching it from a smart fan perspective,
well, you're
buying into the
who cares?
Disbelief.
Yeah,
exactly. It looked impressive and it was safe.
And it makes perfect sense that any wrestler who sees a chair shot coming at his head would try and block it. It makes perfect sense.
Yeah.
I remember two things come to mind. I remember one guy who was taking a chair shot to the head, but what he did is whenever it came in, he just brought his hand up here, like as it came in super quick, brought it up here and just absorbed his hand was actually sideways. So his thumb folded in as he took it. So it even had a little more give that way. But then there was a time where a guy came running at me with a chair and he does that. And I go to put my hands here because I'm like, why would I not? I see him coming at me and he swung it from too far away. So it did not come down here. It came down here, like over my hands, on top of my head. And I just dropped to the floor. And he comes over and grabs me. I was like, and I like pushed his hands off. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I went, "Fuck you." Because that was
Dumb.
it. It was
Was
the
he
Unforced error.
wrong way to do it.
was he being sloppy or was he too excited? That's a cherubile.
Probably
It's
too
like-
excited, but I was pissed.
That seems like too
as-
excited. Like
as you
getting,
should be. Like that's
I did not.
Yeah, but-
I did not receipt him.
so I guess in fairness, the kind way is like, yeah, that happens. People get too excited, but it's also like if I'm playing a pickup game of basketball with you and I get too excited and I like throw the ball at the hoop with poor aim because I'm so
Mhm.
excited. Okay. It's different than me like taking liberties with someone's body, which
Yeah,
that's what
yeah.
pro wrestling is.
well, that's
Like
kind of
my opponent is trusting me to give a level of protection to them because I'm doing things
Yeah,
to
yeah.
them which could cause serious injury if done incorrectly. So
there's a funny story
being a-
about
you can't
there's a funny story about
Got it.
Ernie Ladd and Steve Williams where Steve Williams was a little too excited and wasn't cooperating with Ernie Ladd, so Ernie Ladd sat on him in the corner. Was like son, we're gonna sit here until you start listening to me. Because I figured that's where
that was a big dude too.
yeah,
Like
because I figured that's where I don't know. I guess if I was in that situation, Shad probably knows. Like, you probably just grab a headlock and you'd be like, "You need to settle the fuck down," or you pop him one in the face and say, "Wake the fuck up."
Yeah, it's my usual go-to was I grab a headlock, we go to the mat, and I'm like, calm down. Like, you are way and there's only been one time that I ever like just full on popped somebody. And he decided he wanted to try and make a name for himself and beat up on the big guy, and I said, ease off, and he went, "Or what?" And nobody who ever asks "or what" wants to find out "or what." So I grabbed him by the hair of the head and punched him right under the ear one time, and I said, "Do we still have a problem?" And he said, "No."
so, Shad.
Yeah.
I don't know if you'd have to have been looking at me when you were telling your story, but it's like my head was like this, and you're like, you said "or what?" I'm like, because
Yeah.
that's a proper response. Someone says like, "Oh, what?" It's like, "Or what?" Okay.
Yeah,
I can show you.
That's the thing is, if you say "or what," I told a friend of mine, or I told this story somewhere else, and one of the guys started laughing. He says the guy that says "or what" is never the one that wants to find out the "or what." And you have to. That's almost like you have to. Now it's prison mentality. It's like, "Or what?" It's like, "Oh, okay." yeah,
Or I will now have to take a position that you will not like because I
yeah.
can't let you do that.
yeah,
it's like
that,
I'm not
that
gonna.
was.
It's like I'm not gonna work with you at this point. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, I never saw him again. But when he said that, and I just, like I said, I grabbed him by the hair of the head, turned it sideways, and right under the ear here, where your jaw is, just press right there on the back of it. It hurts. That's because that's where your jaw connects to your skull. And if you dislocate the jaw, you get shock on both sides of your body, and your brain tries to go into shock. And all I did is I hit him once. And then it was... and that we didn't have a problem, but it's like, if I could do that to you just by hitting you one time, do you want to keep this going?
well,
Because then I will quit being nice.
it's also where you work though. So what if he did that and you're like, okay, and you just rolled over the top rope, went back to the perimeter, say, "Hey, that guy's an unprofessional ass and is shooting on me." Like, I ain't doing it.
Well, yes, I could do that too, but we still had the rest of the match to go, and he was not respecting me or taking care of me. So I was like, nope.
I just mean
I'm
like
not-
you could have done far worse to him, and like
Oh,
where does it, like I'm saying, like if if you weren't someone that could handle yourself, like you could have just done that. Like they're gonna take you over
Yeah.
him. Like he's not gonna win. And like I'm saying, even if he had a physical advantage on you, like he's not gonna win that.
What
That
happens with
exchange.
a lot of guys who are on that indie level is the reason that they don't rise is because it doesn't seem like they can think that far ahead, or they don't consider the repercussions of what they do, and so they burn bridges, and they're not as good as they think they are. And yeah, I mean, like I said, I never saw him again. He wasn't brought back in as far as I was aware. But what happens is just one good, there's a reason that the receipt is a known thing. It's like, I'm gonna pop you once, and if that doesn't, like, Stone Cold story. I can't remember who he was telling it to, but it was Ray Traylor was getting fired up and was legit popping him, and so Austin shot him off the ropes and said, "Watch the elbow." And whenever Boss Man came back, he didn't like throw an elbow at him. He pulled his arm up like this and just ran Trailer straight into his elbow and knocked him flat with it. And what is that? That is a wake the hell up kind of thing.
I just think it's weird because like if I was coming into like a new company and I was working with someone that was regular there, I mean my mentality I guess is like someone that's not an idiot would just be like, well, this is your company, like what's like I'm down for whatever you want to do. Like since like the crowds and what works like I'll have some ideas, but like I'm gonna defer to you because it's your that's why I said that's
yeah,
what,
you sit down and you go, what works here, man?
yeah.
But
So
then you get veterans who come in and like, I've been doing this for 20 years, I'm going to call this. And it's like, you're doing it for 20 years and you've never left this level.
Yeah. I feel like the more like especially like at my job, the more experienced I am, the more I am willing to just defer to people and like take a backseat. But I don't have like a big ego about it. So, but this next segment, actually, this has been my favorite episode of the USWA show so far. This next segment, though, I absolutely love. So Tony Falk comes out and he has Miss Jennifer and he's doing his spiel thing, and then Tom Pritchard comes out with. So this essentially turns out so. Everyone comes out because they're having an all-women's battle royal, and they all come out, and they're pretty much arguing about if their valet's hotter or not.
Yeah.
And this descends...
Well, are they arguing about if they're hotter, or are they arguing about who's
tougher? Who's badder? Who's the baddest?
There's the implication of being hot, and I popped for Bull Payne with I think her name was Samantha.
Samantha.
Yeah. And then this pretty much just this is just chaos, and the dirty white boy comes out and runs everyone down. He's like, well, I've got the best of them all, and he calls out the dirty white girl, and they chase all these people off. And this segment actually made me want to watch women's battle royal, with probably like most of them not being trained. I was like, damn, they set that up really nice. And they set all the guys' programs up too while setting up the battle royal.
I admit I was kind of curious.
But this is how you, and I mean, the segment wasn't that long, but like they probably set up a battle royal in 2 or 3 matches for the show. And I have to say though, I love the Tony Falk thing and Miss Jennifer, because Miss Jennifer is just so skeezy.
Well, and Tony Falk is like, I'm sure it was intentionally meant to be.
Well,
they
obviously took
so,
her.
Like, pathetic. It's like, oh, a woman like, you gotta be real special. Like, a woman needs to marry. Like, when a woman marries a wrestler, it's like, oh god.
Well,
you're so pathetic.
But the best part
he looks like a chauffeur too. Like, he has like a little like almost like chauffeur driving outfit.
But I love, because it was her, I think, in the image for the battle royal. But the picture they used of her was like they took it out of like her strip club ad. The way they framed it, and I'm like, oh yes, like that is the perfect like just the small details that they do with that. But I was kind of like, when they were arguing, like, yeah, Miss Texas is kind of the hottest of all of them by far.
Well, I think I read like in my notes that it's like Jackie. All these women are lucky because Jackie like was so far above them. But if Jackie comes out there and she has to be like, she could have been like, look, let's be realistic. None of these white girls can like touch me. Like I can beat up most of the men too. Like
I would
let's be
say,
real.
Dirty White Girl looked like she could handle herself, and she actually knew how to use a strap. So, and
The funny
famously
thing was
in
she wasn't skanky enough. Like, because you had Samantha come out, and it's like
Yeah.
Samantha's like way skankier than you. Bullpay made an appearance, and like she's way skanky. And Samantha, like, well, we're probably it's like, oh, you like chickens, and it's like, you seem like
famously
a real
in
southern dirty
famously in
white girl.
famous
The girl who's like dirty white girl isn't skank enough for this, but she does seem. Brad, you're right. Like she did seem like she could possibly throw hands. Like maybe her and Jackie could like have a thing.
James Mitchell in a Smoky Mountain Wrestling promo on TV referred to her as a parking lot fillatrix.
Wow.
Yeah, so but Dirty White Girl had been around for a while. She had been in like Continental and stuff, but I mean
Apparently she was also known as Mystic.
Oh, that makes sense. And the other thing is though, you can tell like with her versus like CJ is she has like she has presence. Like she understands like and her promo wasn't bad, but she has that presence that like when they bring like a girlfriend or something in that isn't like necessarily a performer, like she could project. She had a personality. Like she's more like Miss Texas where she had like a personality and stuff, where I think like Miss Jennifer and CJ didn't. Samantha I really didn't get a good read on. She seemed like she was a little more in the worker camp than like just someone they dragged in. But I love this segment. I gave this segment like an A+. Just for chaos, like setting so much up. Like
it was bizarre but fun. Wow. So looking it up, the 5 seconds it took me to Google this, Dirty White Girl was the real life wife and partner of Dirty White Boy.
yeah, it makes sense because she followed him around for most of his territory stuff. Like she wasn't always involved with angles and stuff, but she vouched for him a lot.
So I don't know if they like are still married or were married, but
Apparently not. I guess it's to be believed.
Oh, I don't know about that, but I mean, like Dirty White Girl's sister, apparently at one point in time, or still is, was married to Tom Pritchard.
Oh, that makes sense because Dirty White Boy and Tom Pritchard worked each other a lot. Like they worked against each other in Continental and stuff, and you know they tended to go in the same area. It's really sad that such a lame ass like Bruce Pritchard is related to someone as cool as Tom Pritchard. I don't like Tom Pritchard as much as a face though. Like I like his promos, but he works better being like kind of an obnoxious tool bag.
Mm-hmm.
So then we go to so this next segment I absolutely love too. Like I'm sorry, like this episode is really great. So the Moondogs come out for their weekly murder, and Richard Lee's all bandaged up from the fireball, and he cuts like. This is such a great promo. Like he cuts this like garbled. The only thing they could have done better is put him in a Phantom of the Opera mask. They might be able to.
I like it better this way.
Yeah.
This was fun just because he is basically bandaged up like he's like the 1930s Claude Rains Invisible Man.
Yeah.
Like you only see like kind of eyes poking.
And he's literally chewing.
And he's like, I'm gonna get you, Joey Lawler. It's like his voice is all muffled.
he's literally chewing the scenery on this one, and it's like I thought this was a great promo.
Yeah.
And then Moondogs murder jobbers. One of them's Freezer Thompson, who I know his name because he was a jobber in Memphis forever. So then we get Jarrett and Lawler beat the Ninja and Mephisto. I tried to look Mephisto up because when I first saw him, I'm like, Mephisto's got kind of a physique. I wonder if he's anyone special. Then I saw him wrestle. I'm like, nope, he is not. Like that boy is all body, no talent.
Yeah.
Because his positioning sucked. He couldn't bump. He was a total stiff. I don't remember him doing any offense, but
The difference that I saw between Mephisto and Leatherface earlier on is Leatherface's stiffness is all like in character related. Like Leatherface would, whenever they do something, and he'd be stiff, he'd be like arms out, kind of stumbling around, kind of thing, as opposed to this guy who it looked like he had the flexibility of a toothpick.
and Leatherface wasn't out of position, even though I don't think he could see. Like Leatherface was always kind of where he needed to be. Like all this guy's stuff looked weird because he was never where he should have been,
Yeah,
and his
yeah,
footwork was real bad.
yeah.
Because like, this is gonna sound weird. Like he kind of walked around like Herman Munster did in the ring. Because
Leatherface did.
No, Mephisto. Like, because I kept looking at his boots because of the way he walked. I'm like, do you have lifts in your boot? Because you're walking like like I said, you're walking like Herman Munster here, dude.
I don't know.
He was bad. Mephisto was real bad. The ninja was whatever. He did ninja stuff. Then we get Oh, funny enough, if when they the referee for a lot of these, Frank Morrell, was a wrestler in the past.
Yes,
He was the Angel, and he was like the Memphis version of the Spoiler.
that's what I was grasping for, was the Angel. I'd heard stories about him before.
Yeah.
Not great stories, but stories.
So then we get a Jarrett Lawler promo, like kind of last week, cutting a promo on the Moondogs because they have like a no holds barred tag title match at the next Mid-South Coliseum show. So this is finishing the month. Yeah, this is finishing the month of January. So we have 4 shows down. What have you guys thought so far for these episodes, for like the whole month in general?
My favorite of the 4 was still probably the first one, but I'm enjoying it a lot. Like there's every episode there's something that is at a minimum entertaining. And you get like they actually show clips of the actual like big shows that they are essentially like building and promoting.
Yeah.
Which I've again, like in the modern, me having years and years at this point of actually seeing like, marquee matches for free on TV. It's like, I want to see those matches. And it's like, well, it's a different time. Like they were building to that. Like these were basically infomercials, as Brad said, for like those big shows. Like, let me show you the TV to build towards like the Monday night show at the Coliseum that you're gonna have to pay for to come see if you want to see Moondogs versus Jerry Lawler and Jeff Jarrett in no DQ match. But you could see like clips of like the matches that we saw like in this episode, second episode, like, and it's like, I want to see that. Like I would have been hooked. I'm kind of hooked on this now. Like this happened obviously like 30 plus years after the fact, but I'm kind of like hooked on this. It's like, yeah, I want to see this. Like I'm invested in.
The worst
It's
part,
really the Moondog, Jarrett, whomever feud, but some of the other stuff that's kind of like mid card or ancillary, but it's still kind of fun. Like Eric Embry being like a goofball, like sloppy heel, like he's fun. Even Tony Falk, who's like to me like more of like a jobber, but like he's clearly like featured. So
I was gonna say, I think a couple of things to go along with what you said. I think what separates this for me from like when we watch the GWF is having experienced television people really help. And then I also think what I've taken away from this is having even a couple of like what I would say is mediocre veterans that don't have an ego are worth their weight in gold for like a television product. Because like most of their guys are experienced and stuff. But and also what Matt said though, I think the worst part for me is I have to wait till the next show that we're gonna do this to keep watching it. I just can't like bowl ahead and like down a bunch of episodes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I've already seen like because the guy who's like uploaded this stuff, I've already seen like in I think February or something. It's like all of a sudden Jimmy Valiant, the Boogie Woogie
Yeah, I
Man's
saw
making
that.
an
I saw him
appearance,
in
and I'm
the.
like, I don't traditionally like the Boogie
You
Woogie
did. You
Man,
did.
so we'll see.
You did like him though. You really did like him in the when we did that Memphis thing when he went after Tommy
Yeah,
Rich's
I
mom.
did. I'm like, oh, this is like a
And him
different version of Jimmy Valiant. It's like heel Jimmy Valiant. He was actually like
and
kind of like a dick, and I'm like, oh,
and him
this is not the Jimmy Boogie Woogie Man who is like walking through like a 10-year feud with
yeah.
Paul Jones' Army. Like, screw you. I don't want to see you in like your 1000th match with Shaska Pezwa.
You know,
like
I
no.
maybe he's coming back because Coco's back and there's a TV that he needs to break because he really doesn't like Coco owning a
Maybe.
television, especially a color television,
Mhm.
because I think that was a selling point of that. That I still love that, and he kept coming out and smashing the TV sets.
Yeah. I think that. I mean, you guys have said it's a product of the time. That this is how you did TV. Then you did TV that was we're trying to sell the big show. So in trying to sell it, we're not putting marquee matches on here. Everything's build up or squashes. But this is probably the best version of that I can remember seeing anywhere. Things do keep moving. They You don't lose things being out of frame because some idiot doesn't have it framed properly or anything like that. Yeah, I'd say this is the best example of this kind of TV.
I think it being a weekly territory really helps because you got to sell that show every Monday, and you got to find new and different ways like to make your matches interesting. And I think even for like the cadence of the show though, so like I still like GWF. I do like GWF, but like you would not catch Memphis doing that progressively longer recap every week, or like having a segment last too long, or you know, like you have a guy that was like a sports reporter and a weatherman, which is funny. He mentioned the weather somewhere, and it was really funny. He was mentioning it's snowing somewhere,
Yeah.
and you saw Dave Brown's like little weatherman brain kick in, and he was so happy to like do his meteorologist spiel. But they know like okay, well okay, we need to kick it to commercial. Like we need to do this that. Like they were much better at presenting it than like Joe Pedicino.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, these guys, they're very comfortable being on camera.
And I think this shows like I mean this isn't like the best Memphis I've ever seen, but I think it shows why I typically keep Memphis television at like the top of my best TV of the 80s.
Yeah.
Cuz you never know what you're going to get, like the segment with like all the valets and the guys like just getting into this big argument. Like I didn't see that coming, and it kept just kind of growing and growing. Like it really kind of threw me for a loop in like a good way.
Yeah.
So and like the Richard Lee promo too, with all bandaged up, like that was good stuff.
I really did get a kick out of that.
Yep. So next week, if you're gonna join us next week, we are gonna watch the 1994 Crow film with Brandon Lee. I'm gonna make sure to read about the actual accident that killed him so we can discuss that. Pretty sure
Yeah, I know.
it was pretty much a blank, and like part of like the debris of one was still in there.
It's we'll go in the details next time, but it was something like that, yes.
Yeah. So Shad did find it on Tubi for free if you want to watch it in preparation for this.
Tubi, okay.
Because I wasn't sure what it was on, so you're trying to figure it out. But good movie. I really I wouldn't necessarily say it's one of my favorites, but I do love it.
I remember watching this a lot when I was younger. Like
I think it was on Freevee instead of Tubi.
Oh, okay.
But whatever.
Okay, well, that is it for this week. Thank you, everyone, for joining us as always. This is Matt, Shad, and Brad. We've been in 3 corners, and you've been in the 4th, and we will catch you